Be advised, the suspect is armed and considered extremely dangerous.
Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio host, and nationally recognized safety expert, Dr. David Perodin. Join us each week as we discuss the best and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. Follow Dr. Perodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth will keep you safe.
Hi, everybody. It is your good friend, Dr. David Perodin from down here in the North Star Recording Studio. It was 73 degrees out today, but when I wake up tomorrow morning, the high for tomorrow will be 37, and the next 10 days are only colder from there. So summer has ended here in Wisconsin, but it doesn't mean that we don't have a show that's heating up tonight with our guest, the Legalman. You probably follow him on Twitter. So many of you have contacted me and said, oh my goodness, I follow the Quash podcast now that you've made me aware of it, or like I already knew about it. Oh my goodness, this is the Quash guy. Yes, this is the Legalman. So without further ado, let me bring the Legalman into the show. Legalman Lee, welcome to the Safety Doc podcast.
How you doing? Let me put my adjust that.
I'm doing great. We put out Christmas decorations today, and it was 73 in t-shirt weather. So you got to make the most out of that, because tomorrow will be 37 and windy and chilly and snowy and just crazy stuff. So how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Good. Well, thank you for being on the show, and
glad to be here.
So one of the topics that I want to address is citizen's arrest. So we have it here in the state of Wisconsin. Actually, I'm going to read a statement, but before I get into it, about the Legalman. So the Legalman, forget the left, forget the right. This is the truth about the system from a man who knows. The Quash podcast is hosted by a lawyer with 30 years of experience. He unmasks the absurd, false narratives we've been immersed in 24/7 since birth and laughs at them. There's a reason nothing about the system ever makes sense. You've been lied to your whole life, but that ends now. Learn more at thequash.captivate.fm, which is also the pinned tweet and will be in the show notes, and then also on the blog post coming out tomorrow. So just a little bit here about the Legalman. So citizen's arrest. I'm reading here from the village of Bayside in Wisconsin. It said, Wisconsin doesn't actually have a statute regarding citizen's arrest, but such arrests are covered by common law or judge-made law. It basically goes on to say you can do it, but you could have legal implications. And they give a scenario. If someone is wielding a knife or attacking someone, he or she may just as easily attack you. So that might be a case for a citizen's arrest from this village of Bayside. So, it's kind of one of these things, Lee, like it reminds me when I was growing up of quicksand. I'm out there at the fishing hole with my buddies and I'm like, hey, watch out, because quicksand, it was always on TV, like don't step in quicksand, but we don't really deal with that. And it was citizen's arrest. I declare citizen's arrest. What's your take on this? Because it seems like one of these things, right, that is out there. If I were to do this and you were my attorney, how might we try to game plan this before a judge, before a district attorney?
Well, I guess the scenarios are different. You're talking about somebody draws a knife on somebody at some point. Is that what you're saying? And you're there, or just in general?
Yeah. And I think another one I was thinking about would be, let's say someone was trying to kidnap, like my daughter from school, and then they suddenly run into like a playground where there's other kids. And I would do a citizen's arrest. In my defense, my thinking would be they could try to kidnap another kid and take them off in a vehicle. So,
well, what I would say about this whole concept of citizen's arrest, I really don't think that the police failing to arrest somebody who's trying to stab somebody it's not much of a problem. The cops failing to arrest somebody who's trying to kidnap somebody, again, not much of a problem. So, and again, all these things are very state specific. I'm in Texas.
Okay.
The laws concerning what self-defense, when you can intervene versus a citizen's arrest, they're really not the same. I mean, if you stop somebody from kidnapping somebody under that one scenario, right? Well, I mean, there's going to be people who have cell phones, right? You're gonna, if you can hold them down or you can hold them, you just hold them till the cops get there.
Okay.
You don't bother trying to so-called go through a citizen's arrest. So the question is, citizen's arrest, again, most of the time these things occur when the cops aren't going to arrest them. Okay, well, the cops aren't going to arrest them. You really think you're going to succeed with a citizen's arrest? I don't think so. It's not going to work. And so as a practical matter, if people are looking for like practical solutions to problems because they think there's crime or they think that the cops aren't doing their job or things like that, if these are practical questions that ultimately they're trying to solve with a so-called citizen's arrest, it's probably a real loser of a solution. Because let's just even say you've got problems with the cops arresting people for certain kinds of things. There's some dudes slinging drugs on a corner. You don't like it. You called the cops multiple times. They won't do anything about it. So you decide to take the law into your own hands as far as arresting them. Okay. That's at least a plausible scenario, right?
Sure.
Where you might do it.
Sure.
Okay. Well, arresting somebody is completely useless unless they're going to charge them. And so you don't control that. The citizen's arrest, all you're going to do, are you going to go out and book them? You can't go book them. You can't do anything. All you do is arrest them and take them to the police station where there's a cop sitting there, an intake sergeant. He's like, what's going on here? And you start telling him, the dude's just going to start, he's not going to be happy about this. He may or may not take it, but you're running the risk of, in situations where the police don't want to do what you think is their job and you step in and do what you call their job,
right?
You're not going to be happy about that. And you make the tiniest little mistake, and believe me, the police are going to arrest you. That is going to happen. And so again, as a practical matter, since the people don't have a way to do a citizen's charge and a citizen's trial, what the hell good does it do? I've arrested this person. Now they're out and now they're pissed off at you. Even if the best case scenario, you arrested them on some crap case like that, slinging drugs in a corner or something, the dude's going to get out on probation. He's going to be pissed. He's going to come look for you. That's the best case scenario. You've gotten a conviction. Why do you think so many cops become so incredibly cynical? They see crooked cops and they see the system doesn't work. They go out, they risk their life, they bust somebody, they pick them up. The next day they're on the streets.
Right.
They pick them up, they go out, they're 6 months later, they're back on the streets. It's not going to be any different with a citizen's arrest. So you still have to run through the same crooked criminal justice system. And so as an actual solution to problems, a citizen's arrest is a very, very, I would never suggest somebody get involved in something like that. That is like virtually all downhill. We all have cell phones now. When I was a kid, we didn't. So maybe citizen's arrest kind of made a little bit of sense-ish, kind of thing. But as a practical matter, if people are thinking that's going to help them, they'd have to bring forward a scenario. I always like to look at actual scenarios that people bring forward,
Yeah.
Because the devil's in the details with the law always. And the ideas may sound great. And then you start saying, okay, and then what? And then next step, and the next step, what actually happens, and what's the actual next step? And most of the time, it just starts to fall apart as an actual plan, because sounds great, everybody's all fired up, and then the details it just completely sucks.
Have you ever been in a scenario where there's been an attempt at citizen's arrest, or one that you've read about or you've seen in court? Okay.
Never. I've practiced for more than 30 years. Never heard of a citizen's arrest being any kind of issue. Like I said, what happens, there are times when citizens subdue a perpetrator. That's true. Yeah. And they hold them until the police get there. But that's not a citizen's arrest. You see, that's a very different scenario. And a citizen's arrest is not a situation where you either interrupt a crime and then subdue them, or you are a victim of the crime yourself and you
Right.
turn the tables and you arrest them in some form or fashion. Because I don't know how, unless you are some kind of Hoist Gracie jujitsu master, you plan on holding this person, cuffing them. Do you have handcuffs with you?
Well, right.
Do you have twist ties?
Right.
How are you going to transport them down to the so-called police station? And you put them in the back of your car. The reason police cars have big shields and everything else is the guy can just kick you in the head while you're driving. He can try to get out. They're not set up to make arrests. That's the problem.
So you said, you could subdue somebody until the police arrives. So
Sure.
what would be a reasonable manner to do that? Right? Is it where
You better be trained? You better be really trained is all I can say. Are you trained? I'm not trained. I can't subdue somebody. I can hold a 7-year-old kid till the cops get there. Oh, sure.
Right.
I might be holding an 80-year-old lady, but you have to be careful, because unless you're really well trained, you're either going to potentially use excessive force, in which you're subject to the same kinds of problems the cops have. Again, they go through endless training. They have all these different tools. They're also protected by endless regulations and so-called protocols and all this other crap. They have backup. They got tasers. They've got cuffs. Having handcuffs is no small thing.
Right.
Have you ever tried to handcuff someone who doesn't want to be handcuffed? It's not simple.
I've not.
So there's so many problems as a practical matter before you even get to the question of, well, what are the state rules in your state, and how are they really applied? Because it's just hopeless.
So Lee, I look at this and I'm like, so why is it still on the books in so many states? If it's just fraught with, you're trying to use force, you're going to be, the argument would be you've used excessive force, you've detained somebody. I mean, all of these things, why is it still on the books? Like here in Wisconsin, and basically, I'm reading right from one of the police department's websites, and it's saying you can do this. It's just, you're kind of on your own, right? Whatever the consequences are.
Right. You can also go out in the middle of the desert without any water. It's not illegal. People are free to take all sorts of chances, which are stupid to take. And this is a right people have. And, there's no reason to remove it. There's no reason to remove it. It's not like it causes harm by sitting on the books. It's not like people are getting arrested for a false arrest. It's not like, oh, we're going to go out and charge you. There's no problem with it. So I don't see any reason leaving it on, but it's not even on the books in Wisconsin. As you said, they don't even have a statute. So
correct.
To say it's on the books isn't even accurate. It's just out there. It's just a residual right that's still around. That's really all it is.
So, so let's move into jury trials. So I've listened to the Quash, and you speak often about jury trials, and kind of jury trials, right? As being, and please correct me if I'm mistaken in your in what you've said on this, but jury trials being a path to kind of true, authentic justice, as it was meant when the country was founded, right? So tell us more about that.
Right.
Because
I would say that there was a lot of, as far as what it was meant when the country was founded, there was a lot of people who clearly understood the purpose of jury trials, at least some portion of it. A lot of it was already extremely bastardized. And that's why I did that whole series on Lysander Spooner's trial by jury essay. It took me 28 episodes to do it, but it was way worth it. It's still the most important essay out there. But the thing about jury trials, and people are fantastically miseducated about them. Lawyers are too, intentionally miseducated about them. There's two different things with regards to jury trials, and people really only focus on one of them, and they get that one wrong too. But the two things are, how does it actually apply in an individual setting with regards to getting justice, whether civil or criminal court cases, for individuals? That's one very important issue.
Okay.
And really, they're very different, even civil and criminal. People have a hard time making the fact that they're both really equally important, but That's one issue, and that's really the only thing that even organizations like FIJA, which is a very good organization, the Fully Informed Jury Association, they're all over the country, and they hand out information about jury nullification. But most people understand juries really strictly from that potential nullification aspect, which is it's an important aspect, and it's all about justice. But to me, there's a more important aspect, and that is it's a political wing of the governmental system, and it's not in the Constitution as a governmental piece, and so people don't understand, and the government doesn't like the idea of it being a governmental piece. But it's actually, did I lose you? Okay, it's actually the most important political piece, because it allows people to have a say in the laws, and what it does ultimately in those areas is, instead of it being driven by these preposterous elections like we just had, where just teeny tiny portion of people, and then this even teeny tinier portion of people, the difference between the people who vote one way or the other carrying the day, and then all of us being subjected to it. The concept is that if the laws don't have the consent of the people, which is what we're told, then the people go into a jury box and they say not guilty when they bring people up on charges, or when the Department of Justice or some phony baloney governmental agency shows up with a gigantic civil case against somebody. They just say judgment for the defendant. And if the government can't get the laws enforced, okay, if they can't get them enforced, then they're dead letter. And so they're sort of the reverse of the citizens arrest thing you just talked about. Why have it if it's dead letter, right? Why not usually have it on the books if you can't use it? Well, if the government can't enforce it, and everybody knows the government can't enforce it, it really doesn't matter. There's plenty of laws on the books that from the 1800s and stupid crap about what you can do with a jug of milk or some crap on Sunday, or you know, just all these ridiculous laws, right?
Yeah.
Can't do something after 10 o'clock at night. You can't be dancing in a skirt with, you know, above your ankle. They have all these stupid laws that are out there that are still technically on the books many places, but they're dead letter because they never charge anybody with them. And that's normally the way something becomes dead letter is you don't get charged. Okay. But the more important, effective way that the people get control is that they become dead letter because the people don't like them, they don't support them, and they're not going to convict on them.
Right. So what have you seen kind of in the last maybe year or two with jury trial, just an observation you're making of either something that stands out as you perceive in a positive direction for citizens, right? Or something that's in a negative direction for citizens? I guess I'll preface this. One thing I see is anything that seems to be video evidence that's submitted instantly becomes, in Wisconsin, for example, we had our governor making a statement based upon video evidence shot across the street that was, 4 hours before, that happened. And then his statement was 4 hours later. That was the only evidence coming out of an arrest that had occurred in Kenosha County. And I'm like, holy smokes, you just made that based upon someone recording through their screen door, 200 feet away. You came out with the statement. So, I know, and I want to get into this a little bit too, of the power of video, right? Because it seems like video is just dominating everything right now. And if you have video, and we know video can be deep faked, and video isn't this absolute forensic tool, but what do you think? What have you seen in jury trials? What leads us to be optimistic, and what leads us to be pessimistic?
Well, the only thing that really leads me to be optimistic is the fact that FIJA still hasn't been outlawed as an organization, and that at least I put my Spooner jury trial series out there.
Yes.
There's absolutely nothing that moves in the positive direction of empowering the people through juries. Nothing. All it ever is negative. You're not allowed to, as a lawyer, tell potential jurors or to mention it at trial. You'll just get a mistrial, and you'll get sanctioned, you'll get held in contempt. If you try to do on the steps of the courthouse where the jurors come in, they arrest people all the time for that. They call it jury tampering. It's utterly ludicrous. You have a constitutional right to make a decision about the law and the facts, but the kind of scenario you brought up is like, layers and layers and layers beyond what the standard, even public discussion is about jury trials. See, what you're talking about there is, what is the state of the evidence? What evidence comes in? What are juries allowed to use? What is appropriate evidence? Now, if anybody ever listens to my actual entire series or goes and just simply reads Lysander Spooner's essay, all I did was read his essay and comment on it to try to make it more understandable for people. And I strongly suggest everybody read that essay. It's the most important essay, I think, with the terms of any kind of freedom anybody can ever read. But with returns, things like evidence, whether evidence comes in, it's a classic example of how the state rigs the whole system. This idea that you must accept. They have presumptions built inside. They have things where they prevent evidence from coming in. They limit the evidence. They limit the testimony. They limit the kinds of people. They have endless amounts of different rules that they put in place that prevent people who are sitting in a jury from actually getting the kind of evidence that they might want to hear. And that's all 100% covered by this extremely distorted concept that the state controls all of the trial, and that the state tells the jurors what the law is, and the jurors are just supposed to sit there like kind of very strange apparatus who just waits and get this narrowly tailored concept delivered to them, and then they make a decision about whatever the court tells them they can. That's all they do. And it's not realistic. In Texas, it's so extreme that the jurors, they didn't even understand the implication of their verdict. Like, they answer jury questions, which means there's a jury charge. And this is similar in a lot of states. And the jury charge is this elaborate document that the lawyers fight about. There's entire volumes of forms for every kind of case. And you argue about what should go into this jury charge, which gives definitions of words. It describes the so-called violation, either civil or criminal. It then has different, very specific questions that the jury answers inside of the jury box. And when they answer those questions, they have no idea whether those questions mean that the person's guilty or not guilty. They have no idea whether or not it means that the plaintiff wins or loses in a civil case. And in Texas, they're not even allowed to know that. They're not even allowed to. And so they answer these questions, and then it comes out. I've tried cases where the jurors come out and it's like, what? We didn't want them to win. I don't understand. They didn't understand what they were answering because it's so stinking confusing and so intentionally made up, as opposed to the jurors just listening to the facts they think are relevant. How unreasonable is that? That you're expected to make a decision about something without getting to hear the facts you think are relevant.
No, you're right.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. So I did some work as an expert witness in school safety litigation. And I remember one attorney telling me, he said, our goal here, David, is to throw a little dust into the jury's eyes. Right. And I was like, I came into that kind of naive. And by the way, and I'll link this out. Here is the essay.
Oh yeah. Great.
In the trial by Lysander Spooner. And I'll link this out in the blog post tomorrow. And
people should read it.
But I was coming into that naive, right? That this would be this
seeking justice, trying to find truth, and all this other crap.
And it wasn't that way at all, right?
At all.
And I remember that statement. We want to do a few things, and we want to confuse, and then eventually have. And I was like, whoa, So it took a while for me to adjust to that. Being naive, right? Not being.
You've heard your whole life of what the jury's about, what the trial's about. That's all media shows you. That's what the books and magazines and TV and movies. It's all the same. And then that's not the reality.
No. For me, it wasn't the reality at all. So how about, what is your thought on video evidence? Because we have things now, and I guess this maybe gets into government overreach. One of my neighboring communities, I live outside of Madison, Wisconsin, so that's probably all I need to say, right? But I don't live in Madison. But one of the communities adjacent to Madison agreed for their door cams to be part of a mosaic for justice, right? For
Right.
surveillance, and the police can access at any time, and the forensically and all this stuff. And I'm looking at that saying, I don't know about that. That seems like a big overreach, right? That anytime the
Yeah.
police can just log in but then, this whole thing of video,
Right.
people saying, right, you should have a video camera in your car at all times. So what do you think about, because right, a jury, they're used to their phones now and they're used to video. And if they see it in video, that
Screwed.
it's more likely, right? They're going to
Yes.
say that actually happened. That's true. And we know about deep fakes and things like this, deep fake
Right.
avatars. I presented on PBS in 2019 about deep fake avatars, but so as an attorney, how would you advise people of, if you have, so let me put a scenario out there, I guess. Let's do this. I'm driving along, boom, I'm in a car accident. Not sure, it's a snowy thing here in Wisconsin. Not sure if I caused it, I was part of it or whatever, but I have a camera and it had recorded the accident. And now there's three options that I have. Three options. And option one is I can give the camera to law enforcement when they arrive. I can give the camera to my insurance company, the recording, or I can give the camera to my attorney. Which of those three would you recommend? And if so, like why? Or maybe tell us the pros and cons of each of those three.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I obviously can't give people advice.
Right, it's not
advise
advice.
them about what to do. But I mean, there are different scenarios. And again, I'm not sure that type of scenario is even sufficient detail, again, because the devil's in the detail of the law. When the police come out, do they give you a ticket?
Let's say, okay.
Right?
No, so let's say that they don't give me a ticket. So they're coming out and they're saying, what happened, sir, from your perspective? And I'm giving.
Do they create an accident report?
Yes.
Does it make you at fault?
In this case, it did not make me at fault, but I didn't know that until.
Okay, so you're not at fault on the accident,
but
you can ask the cop at the time. It's like, what do you think? And the cop will go, and he's sitting there and he's filling the stupid thing out. And he's like, well, what do you think? And it's usually pretty clear that, well, like this guy, and once they kind of listen to you and listen to the other person, it's usually pretty obvious what's going to go on. If he doesn't issue a ticket and he issues the other person a ticket, well, he found they were at fault. If he doesn't issue anybody a ticket, well, now you know that the cop hasn't figured out what's going on, and he's probably getting close to lunch, and he just wants to leave. He doesn't give a crap about this stupid thing, and nobody was hurt. Now, if somebody's seriously hurt, right? Okay, right. You're gonna get a whole different scenario because it's not gonna be one cop. Someone's seriously hurt. You're gonna get EMS. You're going to get probably a supervisor on the scene. You're going to get a pretty elaborate police report that's prepared. You are. And they get a lot of them pretty right when someone's hurt badly. They don't. They have very sophisticated teams that come out. And so, again, you're talking about levels of what you might do. If the whole thing is that you didn't even get a ticket and didn't say it was your fault, but he didn't say it was the other person's fault either. And so really all this is going to be is, who's going to pay for my damn car? Right? This is crap. I'm not putting this on my insurance.
Right.
This needs to go on their damn insurance.
Right.
And so that's really ultimately the only issue you care about there. And so when you get the thing and you contact your insurance company and you say, hey, I was just in an accident. I run a dash cam. It's obvious as hell. I don't know what the cop's doing. I don't care, but I've got the video. So I'd like to, you guys, I'm not giving you permission to tell them, though they may already know you have a video if the camera's obvious. The best thing in those scenarios is to not tell the other side you have a video. Don't ever tell them. Let them commit perjury and make all sorts of false statements to people, and then whip the video out and just bar them to the ground. And that's the best thing to do. I've done that type of thing many, many times where we have either recordings of other different types of things that people have taken legally, and you wait, you get them under oath. They have no idea you've got the information. You let them hang themselves with a ton of rope, and you give them no wiggle room. You make sure it's like, so there's no question in your mind. You're not now. If he comes in and tells another story, you're not going to change yours. No, that's definitely okay. And then you bring the thing out, and it's incontrovertible, and they're screwed, and it's over.
So I'm in my car. Right. And the guy has Texas license plates, but he's not Lee. So it's Wisconsin, not East Drive. So he has Wisconsin, or he has Texas license plate. But so yeah, the officer knocks on my window. Yeah, and if an officer were to say, and again, if you say, Dave, I can't give legal advice, obviously I got it.
Uh-huh.
But an officer says, oh, I see you have a dash cam. Was that dash cam on? And starts asking questions about the dash cam. I would be able to invoke and say, how could I say I don't want to talk about that? Or
Well, you always have a right to not interact with the cops.
Okay.
But where that's going to ultimately lead in situations like that is for the cop to assume that dash cam has evidence that's very damning to you. And you're probably going to ultimately end up getting arrested. The car is going to get towed, impounded, and they're going to get a search warrant. And they're going to grab that video. And then they're going to see that this stuff actually supports you. And then you're going to have wasted all that time and effort. And so when it comes to cooperating with cops, I'm not a big fan of police or cooperating with cops if I'm not doing anything wrong and there's no reason for the cop to be interacting with me. He's just harassing me. I don't have that happen to me because I drive like a limo driver, and anything that's around, I gray rock out the ass and I leave. I don't interact. But in the situation you've given, if you know that the video shows, that the other guy's at fault, well, yeah, I would cooperate with the cop. I would say, it shows what it shows, officer. It says X, Y, and Z. And most of the time they have the ability, you can just pull them off and replay it right then and look at it.
Right.
And he'll just look at it and they'll go, oh, okay. They'll go over and write the guy a ticket and that's it. Game over. Most cops are going to do something like that. They're not going to take the thing and stick it in their pocket and claim you didn't have it and then write you a ticket and claim you're at fault. That's not going to happen. I mean, if you're in a situation like that, that's that incredibly corrupt, and you've had the bad luck of getting hit by Nancy Pelosi or Paul Pelosi or something like that. Well, dude, that's what happened. You drew a short straw. What can I tell you? You can't do anything about something like that.
So as far as like preserving the evidence, which is the SD card, right? Is that something?
You definitely want to save it. I mean, again, it all depends on the levels of happening. Okay. You got minor car damage. You got major car damage. The other person's making up lies. There's somebody that may be dead. You've got criminal activity. You've got something in your car you don't want the cops to look at. You go down the list. There's a million different possible variations that will affect the way to handle that situation. For the most part, if you don't seem intoxicated, you seem like you're sober, and there's a car accident, they're not going to be arresting anybody. Okay. They're not going to be arresting anybody. And so there's all you're really doing is playing towards the insurance card. And like I said, if you want to show it to the cops so that he writes the arrest report the right way, which normally is sufficient for your insurance company to win against the other insurance company, then great.
You have a very happy dog though. It seems to want.
Oh, it's a cat.
That room. Oh, cat. Okay.
That's Luigi. He's funny. He looks fat as hell, but he's not. He's just all fur. It's funny.
We have three cats. We have a question here from Salted Surfer, and Salted Surfer is saying, do you have a cam in your car?
No, I should get one, but I don't have one because, like I said, I drive like a limo driver. Okay. I haven't been stopped by the cops in more than 25 years. Wow. I haven't been in an accident. I'm an extremely careful driver. If I was more aggressive, I would definitely have one. And even not being aggressive, I've considered. But I've got a 6-minute commute to my office. Okay. I got a 5-minute commute to my gym. I mean, I don't go anywhere as far as that's dangerous. I'm not out in intersections. I'm not out on weekend nights. That's when you're going to get hit by some idiot who's been drinking. I don't live a lifestyle that really needs it. But honestly, I still should have one.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm lazy.
I'm kind of thinking the same thing, right? I don't think I should have one, but we live adjacent to an interstate, and my vehicle is totaled out on an interstate on a short drive. I wasn't at fault. I was kind of in the middle of this multi-car, wreck a couple Januaries
accordion
ago.
Style deal, right?
Yeah, it was. So let's go through the what are your thoughts on our midterm elections? Let me preface that a little bit. I wrote about Hobbes' Leviathan, kind of contemporary take on Hobbes' Leviathan in my book, School of Errors, where in school safety, right? The thought of you give a little bit more access to student records, a little bit more access to whatever in the exchange for safety, and putting bollards up and fences and all this stuff. And, so Hobbes' Leviathan, just for people listening not familiar with it. So in the 1600s in England, there was this writer Hobbes who was writing about how England was at the Civil War state, and his conclusion was people want some government to eliminate this high level of war and conflict, but they don't want any more than that. But inevitably, once people get in power, they get thirsty for more power and they don't relinquish it, and pretty soon it just grows to this like Leviathan, which is monster. And so the thought that you're going to get smaller government once you approve some government is pretty naive. So that's, like you had said with the election, right? It doesn't matter because the government wins. And I'm looking at this in my own state. We had $1.9 billion, Lee, and I'm a school guy. I used to be a school administrator. I teach, 3 courses at university every year, and $1.9 billion worth of referendums to go beyond salary caps, basically, for schools to go for a new building. And schools are decreasing in enrollment, by the way. So the government wins, right? They win on this, and a lot of so I look at this and I feel it in a similar vein, I think, as you of saying we're like, stock market was up today, highest in 5 years, which is a mirage, right? Because we know that spending is crazy and out of control and all fake. And, so tell us about government overreach and I guess some things from an attorney, what you see, and also if there's any practical advice for people out there to limit the odds that they'll be in the net that's going to catch people in government overreach, if that makes sense, it's really strange, right? Because in my town, there are a lot of places now, Lee, where you can't use, it says credit card only, right? So it says no personal checks, no cash. So I'm like, whoa, this is big. This is changing. I don't remember things like this. And I'm very uneasy with where things are going in government control and social credit score. I watched Tom Scott's video on YouTube 3 years ago about social credit score and how it might look in the United States. I'm like, that's very, in my opinion, like it's not far to implement it. And the other thing, Lee, is I think if you did it and you did some kind of incentive, 50% of the population would jump at it, right? I don't even think it would be a hard rollout because, people are
apparently all you had to do is offer them a donut and they'll take a shot. So
which I wrote about, and I wrote about in Velocity of Information. In New Mexico, you got lottery tickets if you got your shot, and people were lining up for that.
Right,
471 endnotes in that beast. By the way, it's but what do you think? And then also, what's practical advice? Because we have a lot of very logical, Constitution minded people in the chat and follow the show, and I think they're kind of feeling helpless, like they're feeling robbed, and especially after Monday night.
Well, there's a lot of questions there, so I'll kind of pick a few or talk about some of the stuff, and you can reshape it and ask me something else. I would say, as far as people feeling used, they feel used. The system uses you. That's what the system is there to do. It's there to grow slowly. And to the people who are in your chat or audience who believe in the Constitution and that entire load of constitutional conservative theory, I can tell you that I was a constitutional conservative for years. And then, 20-ish years ago, I figured it out. It's a complete scam. And I was a huge believer. Strong libertarian, all the same kind of crap that I hear all the time about it. It's just fundamentally not true. The problem with the constitutional conservatism is not that the ideas of freedom and liberty and limited government and all these other things aren't great ideas. They are. The problem is the Constitution doesn't do any of those things. And as far as the election goes, it's a very simple explanation. You look at all these places where they're arguing about whether or not a senator, whether there's some phony voting, and they just elected supposedly that joker up there in Pennsylvania. The guy can't even speak. He can't
Fetterman,
think.
who showed up in sweatpants and a t-shirt.
Yeah, he's a slob. I mean, he's just dresses like a slob. He has no respect for his.
Right? Yeah.
If you're a legal agent, you're attempting to become someone's legal agent, which is what the representative senate would be. Is that how you're going to show up for your job? I mean, someone in a private matter who did that, you'd never accept them. You would never hire them. But the point I want to make is a different kind of point. It's this is why I make the show. Basically, my show explains to people how fundamentally confused they've been totally intentionally. Now, about what the Constitution is and can do or anything else. It has nothing to do with not getting the right people in. Structurally, it will never work. And I think this election is a nice platform to explain to people all this hoopla about Fetterman and the utter idiocy of that election. What are they actually arguing about if you step back and look at it? What are they actually arguing about? They're arguing about attempting to try to get someone in there who will then represent 1% of the Senate.
Oh, right.
1%. So all of this screwing around and everything else. And what are you going to get? It's going to move 1% one way or the other. Okay, that shows you how totally and completely useless your vote is at a federal level. Now, at a very local level, you can make some changes. You can. It's still, I don't vote because I haven't voted in 25 years because it's crap. But I understand people want to vote because they feel like they need to do something. I can assure you it doesn't do anything except for stave off the inevitable, because the way the red and blue teams work is that the red team appears to hold the blue team off, but the blue team always wins. And you can always look at any 25-year period or more, and you'll see that everything moves in one direction. You see, it's never, ever gotten, like, the government's never shrinking over a 20-year period. No. It's never, the debt's not shrinking, the money's not becoming more valuable. Nothing's happening over those periods. And that's because they keep everybody tied up in these day-to-day machinations and nonsensical stories that don't mean a damn thing. And even at the Senate level, all you're actually arguing about with one of these elections in your state, where literally millions and millions of people are involved in trying to jiggle a thing 1%. And that's assuming the guy would get up there and do anything he says, which he won't. And they never do. And what happens once they get elected? All we hear about is how, well, he flipped on this and had to work this deal, and he traded that off, and he's going to pay for it. When he's up for the election. You can't keep it all straight, because you might like one thing he does and hate another thing he does. And the only thing that matters is what he does within a few months of the election. And then all the lies they can tell. The other side can lie. He can lie about his own record. There's it's a complete free-for-all. It makes no sense. Nobody's legal representative in any other aspect of your life is allowed to simply lie to you over and over again with no consequence. But Paula, you say the word government, and the people lose their mind because they're so brainwashed. And so the arguments about a House of Representatives, even more ridiculous. You're talking about less than 1/4% is the most your representation you're going to have.
Right.
Who the hell is going to agree to this? I don't understand. You're supposedly agreeing that an entity, which is the federal government, will have the authority, so-called, to tax you at any rate they want, to single you out, to pass any law they care to, for any amount, to hand out any amount of money they want to the Ukraine or any other bogus program. And you've agreed to all this. You've consented to all this. And the only possible representation you have is you are one of 750,000 people who live in a district who get a 1/4% say in what happens. See, that's not credible. And if you went into a court and you were trying to have a proxy fight and you were trying to wrestle control or something in some kind of corporate setting, and you tried to step in and intervene in the case, and you said, Your Honor, I'd like to make an appearance on behalf, and you tried to file an appearance to intervene, which means that there's an ongoing case, and you claim you have an interest in this case that you need to get heard. Okay, so that's a legal proceeding. And if you step forward and your thing was, it was undenied, absolutely, the facts were absolutely undenied, that you had a 1 in 750,000th interest in a 1 and less than 1/4% interest, the judge would laugh at you. You don't have a sufficient interest to intervene in a legal case. You don't. It's just not even a close call. And so you don't have a sufficient standing to even intervene legally in a case. And yet you're told that this is the greatest system ever devised and that you're so super free because you get to have that. So to me, the elections, they do this with it. They go back and forth. It's like, oh, well, this didn't work. We got to get the red team in now. I'll get the blue teams hurting us. It's a game, people. It's a game. And both of those teams, the conservatives are nothing but the Washington Generals, and the liberals are the Harlem Globetrotters.
Right.
And they're going to lose. Yeah, they make it look like it's close. We lost again. We got control. But the damn rhinos. They screwed us again. It's the same thing over and over again. The people don't seem to be able to catch on that. I mean, literally, they tell you how much water can flush in your toilet. And then at the same time, they tell you that the government's limited and you have rights. If you just examine it, and that's why I make my show, I give people just show after show after show, example after example after example of how the structural system can never work. It will never, ever work to make you free, ever. Can never keep it.
So as I see it, Lee, I see it as becoming, though, like more omnipotent, right? And we, right? I mean, I'll be honest. I don't think we're far from a social credit score at some level, right? That
we practically have it now.
I'm saying, yeah, you're right. It's a de facto with your credit ratings and things like that. But right. I mean, to make it even more overt, if you've done certain things and have to file a disassociation,
that's right.
And so, how do people? I guess your advice to me, your advice to people listening to this show, what are steps that they can take just to limit their exposure to the radiation, which is Leviathan government, right? And Lee, by the way, like I ran for city council for the first time ever in spring, and I was approached by a group, and they said, we have 10,000 followers on social media, and if we back you, you'll win. And I said, yeah. But then they had an agenda. Like they're like, but we want this, we want this, and this. And I don't live in a big area, right? And I said, I don't know about that. And they backed this lady who was running against me, who filed on the last day, who is like, just nothing. She didn't even submit to the paper when they ask you for your response. What would you do and stuff? And she beat me 3-1, right? Because she had this endorsement. And I was just like, whoa. Just locally, I saw this political sway of just this group said, you're the one, and he's not the one. And at least I'd like to believe that the people aren't, that I have more than 60 friends in my town here. But what would you say to people who look at this and they're scared of the Leviathan? I was talking to somebody, Lee, I heat my house with firewood. And I was talking to one of my neighbors, and said, Dave, there's legislation that's brewing down in Madison, right next to the county next to us, to ban heating with firewood. And if they see smoke come out of your chimney, your neighbor could say, oh, my asthma is kicking up, Lee. And so they already have this framework that they're feeding to people. And they're saying, you can go, file a civil suit against your neighbor for polluting the air. And I'm like, holy smokes. Like what am I supposed to do? So all these things.
Well, all of these issues are the same, ultimately, honestly. Every single one, it wouldn't matter how many examples you gave. They're all ultimately the same. And that is that it's an example of the fact that the structure of the system can't work because your voice isn't actually heard. And at a very fundamental level, there is no consent of the people. you don't consent to any of this thing. You don't consent to the idea that your neighbor has a cause of action against you if you burn firewood. You don't consent to the idea that some group of lunatics one county over can meet in a room and write anything you want down on this paper, and then they can send men with guns to arrest you. You don't agree to any of this, but you're told it's the consent of the people. And people have been brainwashed to believe that this voting thing that happens periodically is your consent. But what they don't seem to grasp is that, and I've given this example many times to people, if you're trying to decide, you're hanging out with a group of friends, it's like, hey, let's go to dinner. It's like, okay, I can go to dinner. And everyone's kind of got a different place they want to go. And say there's 5 of you and they say, well, let's go ahead and take a vote. And you're like, I want to go here. You guys want to go there. What's the point of a vote? You said it's a predetermined outcome.
Right.
Okay. Well, the way it works with your friends is you can decide. They take the vote and it's like, hell, I'll go. That's fine. Okay. You don't really care. That's consent, right? Or you could just say, you know what? That's cool. You guys go on. I'll catch you another time. I'm not going to go. The way the government system works that they tell you is consent is that your friends vote, the 3 of them vote to go to a place, and then they make you go and you pay. And then they tell you that you're your best friends in the world and you're never going to find friends this good. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. And so this is the fundamental construct that people need to educate themselves about. And it's why I tell people about juries, because jury nullification and understanding jury rights works. If you have a small town and you educate enough people, and it doesn't have to be that many, because the reason jury trials works is you don't have to get everybody on the jury. You don't. A jury is usually 12 people. There are some places they allow 6 and 10 and have different things. You should have 12 people. If it matters at all, it'd be 12. You only need one person on there who agrees that I don't think a neighbor should have any right to file a lawsuit against somebody because there's smoke coming out their chimney in Wisconsin. And they say, no, judgment for the defendant. And the other people are all trying to say, well, that's the law. You have to. I don't know. I'm not convinced. And they can't win. And so there's no conviction. And so if your neighborhood, if your community where they draw the jurors from, if you just have 5% of the people, 10% of the people understand their rights, then they can't get convictions in those made up crimes.
So
they can't get them.
How do you do that, Lee? You
have to educate people. That's what I mean. That's why I made the series. The people need to read that essay. They need to understand their rights. They need to understand that it's more than just what FEJA talks about with the right of nullification. But if they just understood that, it'd be great. But you have to understand that you have a constitutional right to do that. And the way the courts are set up, they're denying people that right. And that is where the people get hurt. See, in these phony, baloney, rigged up elections, I hold a minority position on every position. There's no way you could sit here for hours. I guarantee you're never going to find somewhere it's like, okay, well, actually, I agree with the majority about that. That's never going to happen. I don't agree with the majority. So nothing I want, nothing I believe in has any chance of ever becoming legislation. It's impossible because I don't have a majority. And to tell me that I'm supposed to go out there and knock doors and convince hundreds of thousands, it's idiotic. It can never happen. I'd have to give up my life for one issue. And so the beauty of the jury trial is if just a very small portion of the population, less than 10%, right? A lot of these things, they just consider them nothing. If around 10% of the people believe it, hold my view, well, right. That's enough. You get a veto. You don't have to win these absurd made up majorities and these rigged up votes. The people, you'd know whether that law was enforceable, whatever laws you're interested in, by just going around and knocking a few doors in your neighborhood, right, or asking some people like, hey man, what do you think about this law? And they'd be like, that's a bunch of crap. I'm not going to do it. I was like, oh, okay, great. You at the gym. What do you think about this law? That thing is okay, great. So you know that law is never going to be able to get enforced in your area. That's it. That's why it's so powerful, because, and honestly, you don't even need 10%, because if you had 5% in an area, you'd get, not every time, but often you'd get somebody on the jury, and then there'd be either a not guilty or a judgment for the defendant. And you'd get so many cases that would either be hung juries or there would
Right.
be something else. And what would happen is the prosecutors would start saying, look, we're not going to even bring them, or they'd offer someone a really, really good deal so they don't have to risk the trial time, because getting a trial in a timely manner, go down there and look how long trial dates are. It's forever to get a trial date. And if everybody knew the law wasn't going to work, instead of pleading out and being scared by the prosecutors could supposedly throw the book at you and all this other crap, you wouldn't be scared. You'd be like, go ahead, dude. You're never going to get it. I'm going to set it for trial. Everybody would set for trial. And then the trial dates would be 5 years off and 10 years off. And then you start running up against all the rules on the books about speedy trials. And they'd have to dismiss the cases. And when the case got there, the witnesses would all be gone and moved out. They wouldn't be able to make their case. And so there's a million reasons why that stuff would start working with far less than even just 10%, which it would basically work every time.
I think this gets to a question from the chat. John, who's a regular with the show, said, what about the long delay before trial even happens? Can be in jail for months. So
yeah, I mean, you can. It depends. You're entitled to bail. You have a constitutional right to bail. You do. And so that's in every state. You have a right to bail. And now they can have very specific statutory things where you can't get out. And I did public defender work, and I saw people sitting in there, and it's a complete scam. I was kicked out of 3 courts in 1 year because it was such an outrageous kangaroo load of crap down there. I got in a lot of trouble. And, but people do, but you have to really be broke to not be able to get out on probation. If you're an honest citizen and you don't have like a long record, a homeless person, you're going to get probation. I mean, you're going to get a bail.
Okay.
You will. You'll get a reasonable amount of bail. And yeah, you got to call a bail bondsman, and it costs you the 10%. But yeah, it's better than sitting in jail. And there's other ways you can maneuver around that. It has to be an incredibly serious crime where jury nullification isn't going to work. Okay. You're going to convince people that we don't enforce murder around here. It's like, I think we do enforce murder around here. Well, enforce armed robbery around. That's not a crime. It's like, yeah, you're going to lose on that. So the idea that you'd have a bail setting that would be so unreasonable that you wouldn't get out for months, that's not realistic unless you already have a very long criminal record.
So I'm in Wisconsin, and so Lee, when you're talking about the fireplaces and the bands and things,
it's a crazy law.
So what happened? So just okay. So I don't live in Dane County. I live adjacent to Dane County. Dane County's Wisconsin is Madison, right? Our state capital.
Okay.
So there's some talk in Dane County to have a bill, right? I guess my question is, I don't understand how this works. Could a bill be passed then that is in effect for all 72 counties? But like my county sheriff would be like, we're not enforcing that. Like, we have, many people who heat by wood, and we're just not going to enforce that. So I guess that's
sheriffs are incredibly important. People need to understand them. They are actually the highest law enforcement official in the county. And the feds and everybody else want to do everything they can to minimize that. In fact, one of Joe Biden's sons used to run the entire national initiative to try to undercut sheriffs, because the last thing they want is people to understand that the sheriffs, they respond to people. They're elected. Cops, what can you do about the police chief? Nothing. He's appointed by the mayor, or you can't do anything about him. And so, again, we've supposedly consented to this group of armed thugs running among us who we can do nothing about. It's moronic that people believe this stuff. But the sheriff, if the sheriff's not going to do it, you're going to be in good shape, except that most places, unless they're really small, they also have police forces. So the sheriff may not, but the cops do. Okay, well, he's screwed. The cops come. The sheriff doesn't come. Now he's screwed. And so, again, yes, if you're in a county that only has a sheriff, doesn't really have police force, or the police force is actually very responsive to the people, then yes, the police just saying, look, they come out to the neighbor's house and they just, come on, guys, come on, really? You expect me to go over there and arrest your neighbor because he's burning firewood in the winter in Wisconsin? This is ludicrous. I'm not going to do it. That's it. That's all. That's what would happen. And the only reason that even sounds incredible to people is because they're so brainwashed about this law and order nonsense that the constitutional conservatives run around and tell you is freedom. And it's not. You didn't agree to the law. You didn't agree to the law. So Where do they get your consent to pass it? I don't agree that there's going to be anybody who'll have the authority to pass a bunch of laws I don't agree to. I don't agree to that.
Right.
So you don't have that most fundamental agreement and consent. They just act as though that's all assumed away. And it's just not. It's just not.
Wow.
That's the problem. So, yeah, you could definitely protect yourself with sheriffs. Some, if you're in a county where there's only sheriffs, like where I live, it doesn't work because there's cops. But it's a good place. And look, if you're like a white dude like me and I'm driving around a decent car, it's a nice area, the cops don't hassle me. They find out you live here, they let you go. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's Mayberry RFD. When I was a kid, even, I did all sorts of things, all sorts of problems I got into where a cop would show up and he didn't arrest me. Oh, no tolerance, zero tolerance, all this crap. They're going to help me by throwing me in juvie. They call your parents and they come, kind of sucks. And that's it. And then that's it. That's all that happens, which is the way it should be in a community. But the people are so brainwashed again about what should happen.
And that's a point, I want to underscore is people don't have any idea, right? I mean, I talk to people, they don't have an idea of the Constitution. They can't tell you First Amendment is free speech, right? Second Amendment is fire. They don't even know that. And then, I was talking about this with school administrators in fall, and we had a question come up with the law of necessity, basically interpreting the law of necessity. And the scenario was, there's a student on your playground, fourth grader with autism, wanders off the playground. And this actually happened in our state last year. Wandered off the playground, got into private property, and then next to private property was a lake, right? And there were two parts to this. One is, would you tell your staff to go search for the student? And 50% of the administrators would say nope. And I said, why? Because the sign says private property. Because I had 5 slides, and one of them had private, and I put that on purpose, right? Mm-hmm. And they said, no, I'm not going to have my staff go on private property, even though there's a 4th grade boy with autism, right, who's on that property. I'm not going to have anybody go over there because it could be arrested as private property. I'm like, okay, interesting. And there was another scenario then where somebody comes in with a drone. They heard the 911 call and they come in with a drone and say, I can have this drone up in 60 seconds and I can give you an aerial and we can maybe find this kid. Again, 50% of the people say, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to shut it down. That's not part of our plan. And then also they don't believe they have the discretion or the best interest, or they think they're going to be. Some said I could be arrested if I let this drone operator operate.
Listen to this insanity.
It's public ground, and one person said to me, they said, Dave, I know you can't operate a drone over a park, right? So what if this is up against? And I'm like, and I would have to stop and say, listen, somebody's life is at stake. And then I brought in the law of necessity, and I'm like, I said, I'm not a lawyer. Wow. I can't tell you this is a legal defense, but I'm like, obviously, right? If it was me, I can tell you exactly what I would do. And I wouldn't sit there and try to, run this person's ID through a Raptor background check and all this stuff before I got out. I wouldn't say to my staff, oh, if you go over there and you do twist your ankle on private property, we've got your back. Or if but these people get so narrow. And they're trained this way. And I think what we end up, and the whole thing too, is like, I stopped at the scene of an accident back in August, saw it happen 100 yards in front of me, got out. I used to be a firefighter. So, I'm telling people, get back in your vehicle, shut your engine off, stuff like that. But like other people, weren't stopping. And I'm kind of wondering, like, is it because they're afraid? Like, are they afraid to be on a scene, or they're not pulling over and down 911? But
I think again, all of these kinds of things, with regards to school stuff, it's always the same. And that is, I listen to these constitutional conservatives on the radio. It's always the same crap. Go down to your school board, take control. Like, you're supposed to devote your entire life to watching this governmental entity. Right. Government has no business being in schools. That's it. All government schools need to be shut down. Government involvement in any way in schools needs to be shut down. So what are they concerned about? Well, they're government employees. They have to worry about what's going on. Are we on government property? Are we on private property? And then there's now the insanity, what they're worried about. They're worried about them maybe getting arrested for doing something that makes perfect sense. This is the insanity we live in, the insane so-called law and order. law and order is just a very sneaky way of pushing tyranny of the state, that whatever the state writes down, that's supposedly the law. That's not what law is. That's not what law is. Can they outlaw purple shirts? Can they make anything illegal? Apparently people imagine they can.
Right.
Well, who gave them this authority to make anything illegal? That's why the jury trial is so important, because the people have to get de-brainwashed about what law and order is, that they're in charge, that just because it's a so-called law, it doesn't matter. It's a made-up thing. We haven't even gotten into all the way the law is so unequally prosecuted, enforced. The way the trials work, the thing is a completely rigged system. And to be scared that, well, the kid went over into private property. Okay, yeah, it's true. Private property, whatever. There's a no trespassing. If you had people well informed, as I've been explaining to them, it'd be like, okay, we're going to go over and get the kid because he may be drowning. Well, you're private property. You've been trespassed. Okay, so what's going to happen about it? Are you going to get arrested? No, you're not going to get arrested. And even if you did get arrested, what would happen? Not guilty. You're walking. You're never going to get a conviction. So right. There'd be no concern. Oh, you're going to get a civil suit for trespass. Well, first of all, there's no damage, so there's not going to be a civil suit that's going to work. You could just sit there and just plead, oh, yeah, no contest. Go ahead, take a judgment against me. I'll take it to the jury. What, $1? Okay, there you go. We're done. There's just nothing to it. It's just that the people are so confused about the way the system works because they built it up over such a long period of time. And the media, the academia is so much brainwashing. The people are so lost when it comes to even having a framework to think about these kinds of things. They intentionally make sure you have a framework that does not work to solve the problem. They put you in a box that doesn't have an answer, and then they get everybody running around inside that box arguing about, oh, we should go over there to that corner. Let's go over to that corner of the box. Maybe we'll go to that wall. But, dude, you're still in the box. You got to get out of the box. And that's the part that the constitutional conservatives in media and government, that's what they do. They make sure that nobody ever gets out of that box. They argue within a box where there's absolutely no answers. And that's what I've tried to tell people for several years now with my show, because it's really fundamental. And all these problems go away once people can see the actual box they're in, and why the people who are running, I suppose, conservatives to help you are your worst enemies, because they are the only thing that stands between you and the psychos on the left who actually want the government involved in doing everything and running your life.
Oh, right.
They want it. You can never convince them. That's hopeless. You only people you can ever reach are people who at least want the right thing. They want sanity. They want the government out of their lives. And then they are driven into this ditch by these constitutional conservatives in government and media and academia. That's why everything's so screwed up.
It's so Lee, also to respect your time. I know you've got less than 5 minutes. I got to catch a call
at 8:15 here.
So I wrote an article that was featured in Phi Delta Kappan this month in November, and it was about abeyance agreements in schools. For example, it's very prevalent practice to have people sign off, administrators come in and say, waive your right to due process, right? So we can just automatically suspend or expel you. So yeah, that's the feature in Phi Delta Kappan. I'm working with Pritzker Law School. They're doing a legal note on this coming out in March, because I look at it and as a school guy, right, of many years, I'm saying it's a total sham, right? But so how can people find out more about you? And then also, would you recommend, and I'll put the link, is it, FIJA.org to become educated, to travel that path of starting to realize there's two sides or a side?
FIJA is really just about fully informed juries, which basically they just tell people about their right to jury nullification. So that if you don't believe in the kind of phony baloney drug laws, that if you get caught with a joint for your own good, you have to get a criminal record and all this other crap and be put into the system. And if you don't believe that the government has any right to tell you that you can't have a certain kind of weapon or ammo or anything else, then you understand that you have every right to say not guilty when they bring them up on those phony charges. But, as far as trying to understand that, it took me a very long time. And I mean, I've been practicing law for more than 30 years. It's taking me decades to sort out all this scammery. And it's not simple. And I have a lot of sympathy for people who want to know the truth. The problem, I can warn them, is that they're not going to be happy when they find out the truth, because most people who want liberty and freedom, they're totally identified with America being this freedom machine and Constitution being the most brilliant document ever written. And, their father fought in the war and defended freedom. And it's a very, very demoralizing reality when you start realizing how fundamentally you've been lied to, how none of that's true, and it hasn't been true for a very long time. So if people want to dip their toe into it, they can follow me a little on Twitter. I do some stuff on Twitter, Legalman at US Crime Review. I may come off my private account because they were constantly suspending me for doing nothing. Or they need to just listen to some of my episodes on the Quash. And it's available a lot of places, and listen to some. And most people it's going to be too radical for them. But, if you're serious about understanding the truth, believe me, I tell people the truth, and I take a lot of grief for it. But, I'm a kind of person who wants the truth. And I'm also a big believer that you cannot solve a problem until you understand it. And you running around trying to solve the problem with things that don't work, that's never going to work. You're completely wasting your time. You're way better off at least understanding the situation. I give people the example all the time. If you live in a neighborhood and the cops are crooked and you don't know it, and you got some problem and someone causes a problem and you don't understand that a gang runs this neighborhood, and you go to the cops and you complain about that gang, you think have you done yourself a favor? No, you just screwed yourself. But if you understood that the cops are on the take and this gang runs it, which is the situation we actually live in, well, now you can make better choices. It doesn't change anything about the crappy situation you're in, but you're a lot safer understanding the reality. I can't tell you how many people wake up in the wrong order, think that they're going to call the FBI or the cops about some problem, or idiots who go to HR and complain about something. Right. Dude, you're going to get screwed because you don't understand the system. And that's why understanding the system, even though it's depressing, helps to defend yourself against the system.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So Lee is the legal man, and I just had the Quash, and let me put it back up there. So this is the Quash, and I'll have the link to this captivate.fm. And when I started to again promote this show, people were finding this and saying, "Oh my God, like I'm addicted to this now."
I get a lot of binge listeners.
Yeah, that is exactly the term. And one of them right here, CAT, who did a $10 super chat, thanks. He said there should be a victim before the government can step in and even try to take your freedom and property. Thanks for the super chat.
There's not even a crime.
Oh God, yeah. And so yeah, I am so thankful for the work that you do, Lee, and I download your shows. I listen to them. And I'm just like, whoa, because when I asked you to be on the show, and thank you so much for saying yes. I just think,
my pleasure.
I think there was an opportunity to tell people and to say, listen, there are, especially the jury trial. You mentioned that, because it does seem like we have this big Leviathan coming in, and that there are fewer and fewer choices people can make, and the government controls everything. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure, about that. So this was extremely helpful. I appreciate your work. I'm a big fan. So again, when you said yes to be on the show, I was like, yay.
Yeah. And Lee, I'm always happy to go on, and I'd be happy to come back. So,
well, and I'll take you up on that. And sometime too, I can share some of the school stuff that goes on, because, I was a school administrator for 30 years, and I have 2 classes I teach. One is legal issues for superintendents. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm teaching legal issues, not law, but I also teach legal issues for special education directors, and can also tell you like how I feel like I empower people to say, no, you can change a board education policy. You can administer CBD oil to an epileptic student and not go to jail. Like, this isn't in stone. You can do this. And here's how
insane.
Bring up your policy, and we'll rip it apart right now and correct it. So, but I know you have a commitment. So thank you so much. I'm going to stay on the show and interact with the people in the chat. But again, Lee is the legal man. I'll have this post out tomorrow at safetyphd.com, and you'll have everything that you need to know to contact him. Check out the Quash. But again, I'll have all of those out there for you. This is episode 193. Lee, thank you so much. You're a wonderful person, man. Thanks for doing what you do, man. I appreciate it, and so do so many people. Thank you, Lee.
That's great. Like I said, I'm happy to come back. So just hit me up in Twitter again.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
We'll do, buddy. Take care. Thanks, Lee.
Guys.
All right, everybody. So that was Lee, the legal man. And I want to give a shout out here. Thanks, Coop, man. Really generous. A $10 super chat. Mike gifting us with a $3 super sticker. So thanks. And Coop sent out my wall art today. And after you did that, Coop, I went on and I ordered the frame for my doctoral degree. So everything should arrive next week, but wasn't that awesome, man? Here we go again. The quash, that is the legal man right there. So I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't know if he'd be on the show or not, and just for the fact that he is a pretty big tier social media presence, right? Kind of like when I had Larry Lawton on the show. So yeah, I was just like. I don't have a real big channel. I'm really into what you do. I have a great people in the chat here, and wow. So right, the jury trial and TJ Martinell. Those of you who follow TJ Martinell and the Mountain Pass podcast, TJ talking about the importance of your sheriff. Like if you live rurally, like a sheriff is very important because it can make decisions on what they're going to enforce and not enforce. So if you get some ridiculous thing of like, oh, you can't burn your fireplace because, somebody 2 blocks down now is going to, claim that increases their allergies. Right. And, your place has been up since, 1970. Right. And you've had this fireplace. Or you get one county out of 72 that decides they're going to try to do this and push it across the state. So, but I think I love this show. The legal man, as you could tell, a ton of energy, smart guy, attorney. And the fact that I would say, like, after Monday night, I kind of felt defeated. Like when I came into Tuesday morning, I was like, this sucks. Like I didn't think, I don't know if I was naive. I thought things were going to go differently, but I was kind of like, and then, we have weird things happen. Like today, the stock market is the highest it's been in a single day in 5 years. But again, that's a mirage, right? That's not real. And the fact that the day before it was down 500. So even if it's up 1,200 today, it's still down for the year, 10, 15%. So, I mean, it's this one day where people kind of like, it's if everybody, somebody takes, if you have a bag of apples, right, or a bag of Skittles, and they take 100 Skittles from you, and then they give you 50 Skittles back, you're like, whoa, I got 50 Skittles. And you're like, yeah, but they still have the other 50. So CNT is saying, legal man is telling the truth. I could follow on Twitter. Yeah, CNT got banned, man. Sorry about that, buddy. But yeah, so let me show. I want to show what you made for the back wall. I'll have to do it without the music because I don't have it set up for this. But I am excited, man. I am tracking that. So let's see here. I think I'm going to pay for the blue check, by the way. So the $8. So this is from Coop. So it's a gift to me. So thank you, Coop. So with the LEDs, and it's going to go on the wall. So let's do a replay on this. So there it is. Okay. So it automatically does that. But really cool, really awesome. So it's going to be on the wall behind me. So let me, so what I'm going to do in the back is above the guitar is going to be Coop's studio artwork. So I'm going, so kind of above the flag, but to a little bit to the right. So the chord comes down that crease, like that's right at the base of the guitar. in the wall if you follow it up. That is where the artwork that Coop sent me is going to be. I know I should have a different term for it than artwork because it's really cool, right? But that's where that's going to be. And then over above the books, so my diplomas right there are going to move over. And then I ordered a new frame for my doctoral degree. I never had that. It's still in the folder they sent it. So where you see my Professor of the Year award, that's going to be the frame for my doctoral degree. And then next to that, right above Velocity of Information, is going to be those degrees. And then somewhere I'll put the Professor of the Year. They'll be in the mix. So all the academic stuff will be on one side. And then kind of more of the show and artistic will be over by the guitar. And then the record will move over to the right-hand side. And then also like in the show here, so let me do this in the show. So right here, that where I've got it up there, where it's the safety doc, that will be gone because it will be redundant. I won't need it up there with Coop's artwork. So that area will be, I don't know if I'll kind of put that in the corner maybe. So yeah, anyway, it's going to be really cool. I've got it kind of all thought out how I want to do it. So, well, thank you. First of all, everybody for being here. You can follow on Twitter, the Legal Man. So let me put I know he kind of got the Coop situation going where was booted off and then he had to come back under a different name. So, let's see here. Let me get it. All right. So this is Legal Man on Twitter. Is U.S. Crime Law Review. And then the pinned tweet is The Quash. That's his podcast. And you're going to get Lee just like he was tonight, right? So really cool. So Lee has 41.5 thousand followers on YouTube, and he's following 6507, including me. So I'm like, yay. Yeah. So there's a handful of people out there, and one is Lee, the Legal Man, that I think you need to subscribe to, right? And you need to follow people who are very sensible and reasonable. So I would say, if I had to do that, from Dan from I Allegedly is another one. Jeez, I Allegedly on YouTube. Not really doesn't do much on Twitter, but he does a daily show on YouTube. Let me bring it up here. I'm only going to bring up 3. So, jeez. What the hell's going on here? And hang on. And it's like, Orca Bueno. Okay. So let me bring this up. I watch this every day. Dan has 256,000 subscribers. He's out in California. And so every day he's doing a show. Your real signs of pain, get ready for a gas shortage, just phones. But what he does is he has a lot of information that he vets. He does a lot of research. And then his shows are about 30 minutes long, and he's walking along a coast in California. So it's also a good upbeat visual, especially for like me in Wisconsin where it's cold and things like this. But Dan knows his stuff. And so he's going to be like, oh, Bank of America is doing this, or like they closed down the Geicos in California. And then, this is happening here and whatever. And so I think like the Legal Man, Dan from I Allegedly, and then my third source, I like Southern Prepper, but that's just like people emailing in Southern Prepper 1. And you don't know how authentic that really is. What is the other one that I typically go to? So I go to Dan, I Allegedly. Yeah, Jeremiah Babe, but Jeremiah Babe's like, I'm leaving California for the last like year and a half. And, which gets to be, if you've watched one of his shows, it's kind of the same thing. Oh, Neil McCoy Award. So these are the 3 channels that I watch pretty much every day is, so let's do Neil McCoy Award. Let's bring that up. So here's Neil McCoy Award. If you're not subscribed, I would recommend right here, Neil McCoy, McCoy Award. And I allegedly, and let's see here. Here we go. And Quash with Legalman. So that's not on YouTube. That's over on FM. So I just posted it. So those are 3 places for information that I suggest you should go to. The Legalman also has like a really nice little show notes here where it's just, a couple sentences. And but anyway, those are my go-tos, just so you know. Neil McCoy is over in England. And then, the Quash is in Texas, and Dan allegedly is in California, and they're all producing what Lee produces content about maybe twice a week, and Dan is every day, and Neil McCoy is pretty much every day. So, and I think if you listen there, I found personally what it does is it's good balancing intel, and it's people who think similar to what I think, which I think is similar to what you think. And then of course, being an attorney, the Quash is going to give you some insight into things like, I didn't know that, this was a jury trial, or like, your sheriff. And because, one of the things I'd like to bring the Quash back on and run through a couple of these case studies and scenarios I run with my students, because again, like, it's not everybody, but there's half of the students who would say, I'm not going to tell my staff to trespass to find a student who's lost, right? And they get into all of these things because they and Monday night when we have Lisa Lenny on the show talking about the law of necessity, right, where you have to break one law to benefit the greater good. And I just so Neil McCoy is really spot on too. And so anyway, I thought that was a great show tonight. So do you guys have anything you want to talk about from that show, or any, so let me go back in here to the chat. So, yeah, CNT saying, I actually got to tweet back and forth with Lee right before that ban hammer hit. Can you guess? Guess you can question parents that bring their kids to drag shows. So, I made a turkey today. That's Vanessa. I could go for turkey, gravy, and stuffing right now. Has to be kind of like a moist stuffing, like not real big into dry stuffing, but I am totally into like overeating on Thanksgiving. I've been pretty good, pretty physically fit. So just to give you guys an idea of so I was outside all day. We had 73 degrees and it was overcast, but it wasn't raining. It was supposed to, well, they said, you're going to have storms in the afternoon, but it never really panned out. And we got the Christmas decorations up. And so at one point, let me give you an image here of my house. So I have these deer, and let me bring up the picture here. So there they are. So I have these deer, and that's my house. And this was a 75-year-old oak tree, and here was another one that on our neighbor's property that they had taken down. So that's why the grass looks different. There's a little bit of a mound. So that will all come down. That'll blend in next year. But so here's my house, steel siding. Da, da, da. But here's the deer I put in the back. These all used to move. They have little motors on them. The heads used to move, but none of the heads move. They're 20 years old. I got them at Home Depot. But the deer are heavy. Each one of these deer are easily 40 pounds. So it's not like the stuff you'd get today. Like these are heavy metal deer. So the lights had gone bad on most of these. So we bought a lot of lights. We didn't LED them, but we bought a lot of the regular little white incandescent. Yeah, and so I plugged it in. I was trying to figure out what worked and what didn't. And I'm trying to untangle the stuff. I'm like, God, this is taking forever. So what I did is I just brought out my snips and I was just like live snipping stuff off of here. So a couple of times like it shorted up, but it still worked a lot faster than trying to unravel all these things. And then I need to buy some white electrical tape so I can kind of put these things on. I just use little twist ties that I had, but they're pretty good. I mean, so these look great in the back, and then you look down where I'll show you another photo. So you look up from like we're on top of a hill, and these look cooler in our backyard. I'm not sure about these if I got these positioned exactly right, but if it gets really cold, then that's just where they're going to be. But so yeah, we got all of the stuff decorated out front. This sleigh right here was made by my neighbor from back home. He died like 10 years ago. So he made this sleigh like 20 years ago and gave it to me. And I don't know, it's in bad shape. I don't know how long the sleigh's going to be around. But then, yeah, I got the lights over here and little lights out in front. So, but this was 73 degrees today. And then it's going to drop down to 37 tomorrow and then 30s for the next 10 days. So let me see if I've got another picture here. So yeah, so here's the front of my house. You could tell there's obviously the concrete. I ran the cord. So I've got a seam in the concrete, that they put in every 10 feet. So this is a foot beyond the seam. So when I snow blow, I can make sure I don't get the cord caught up in that, because I did that a couple of years ago. And then this fire bush, and actually this grass came in really, really good. Whoa. So grass came in really good over here. So then my deer down here, but yeah, things are looking good. Let's see what else we got here. So so here's my backyard. So this is what I was saying. If you look out our porch, so these are the two deer. And again, the head used to go up and down and used to turn side to side, but they don't anymore. But I put new lights on all of these. And so it's about 200 yards from here, goes down pretty steep. This always like pools with water down here after a big storm, but that's like 80 feet below where we're at easily. And then, so if you're driving the road, this is a pretty busy road down here. You can see these in our backyard. And it's a pretty cool effect. And also you can kind of see them from the front road, but this is right on my property line, a couple feet, and that's my neighbors, but it's pretty neat. So they're out there, they're on right now. They'll be on till 11:15 tonight. Those are on a timer. The other ones are on an on-off switch. So, but yeah, I got all the leaves cleared off. But we'll probably have a dusting of snow here within the next 48 hours. But yeah, again, 73 it's the time to do that, because the cord basically lays flat. You don't have to, once it gets cold, once it gets to be like 40 degrees or colder, like trying to put cords out is just crazy, because they don't bend whatsoever. And trying to stake these things down, because they're all down with tent stakes. So I bought these at Home Depot in 20 years ago after Christmas. And again, each of these weighs easily 40 pounds. And big metal frame, and stuff like that. And then I put the lights, I chopped all the lights off of them in the last 2 days, because they were all dead. And then I restrung them kind of the best I could, which turned out pretty good. I mean, these look fine, like at night. And I didn't pay much for these at all. I bet you I paid $15 a piece for these back 20 years ago. So yeah, kind of cool. So let's go over to the chat. Thank you so much for being here for the Legal Man. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Mike and Coop, for the super chat while he was here, right? So it's good because he's like, oh, this channel's. I appreciate everybody, but I appreciate that you guys did that. So I was listening to Lee all day. That shit is good and not good for your mood. Yeah. Yeah. Lee's the kind of person I definitely want as a friend, and I would love to have him as a neighbor. Love to have him in my town. So I think it can be very disheartening after, like, Monday's election and stuff like that, to not have someone like Lee, not have Lee out there. So Lee has great content. My city has been anti-outdoor fire ordinance. Whoa, anti-outdoor fire ordinance, meaning, so John, so they're saying, hey, like, you're trying to like ban fires outdoors, like a little fire pit in someone's backyard, like knock it off. Is that what you're saying? So I'm really concerned about this where I live. And I shared this out with the people, the people, family business that installed our fireplace back in 2006. We had a fireplace before, but then they did the insert, heat my house with wood. And I've got 10 cords of firewood on the other side of this wall. And there's this push out of our state cap. So in Wisconsin, Milwaukee County and Dane County, out of 72 counties, basically carry the entire state when it comes to voting. And, there's rumor, right? You see it in Pennsylvania, you see it in New York, ban fireplaces. Well, they're saying because of like global warming, right? But more or less the argument that's shifting around here, it's not that big yet, but it's the argument of saying, well, if you burn a fireplace, like, you can contribute to somebody's asthma or their air deteriorate their air quality. And I'm like, well, all right, I guess. But so what happens in that situation where something ges passed? Is your police going to enforce it? Or is your insurance company going to say, hey, we know your house has a fireplace and it's your liability, right? We have your liability policies through us, so we're going to cancel that unless you have your insurance or your fireplace disabled, like blocked up or something. But I don't know, man. It was I didn't even think that would be a thing. So CT, I added even more lights to it, by the way. Oh, you're saying the sign? Man, that's awesome. I can't wait to have it back there. So yeah, I've been kind of thinking, Coop, of how I'm going to do like a channel for the cord. First, I'll probably just leave the cord there until I really kind of figure out, like, definitely that's where I want it. But then I'm going to buy a channel strip at like our Menards or Home Depot, and then I'm going to paint it black, and I'm going to put it right down that seam. It's going to be really cool. Like, I'm super excited, and because that's paneling, it can hold stuff up, and it's old school paneling, right? So it's easy enough to do that. So very cool. Coop's work is amazing. It is. It's going to be so incredible to have that back there. And Coop, like, because you did that, that also inspired me to actually purchase tonight the frame for my doctoral diploma, which I wouldn't have displayed probably otherwise. But now, to just elevate the back of the studio here, with your design, your creation, and then kind of the diploma on that other side frame, I think I know it's gonna be really cool. So yeah, and I'm gonna probably put the record pretty close to where your sign is, because the record isn't going to show any reflection off of the colors either, like the diploma frames would. So, but I don't know, it's gonna be really cool. So let's see. Look at this here. It's true, Coop. You can ask Ron. I absolutely love my sign you did for me called the Coop Original. So you did one for Misty. Awesome. Yeah, what was I going to do? Oh, at some point I have to have my website redesigned. I've got to find somebody to do that. And then I was going to Oh, Vanessa, it was you. To have some coasters made for the down here for the studio, because I always run into that where everything kind of sweats all over the desk. So like a wooden coaster doesn't work and whatever. So I need to try something out. So reading campaign furniture now. I'll be building the chairs soon enough. Wow. So yeah, Dan from my allegedly, just so I can keep, let me kind of catch up here. I actually got to tweet back and forth. Good. I think I'm a little bit behind. Check out popular preparedness. Poplar is in the tree. Let me try that. Oh yeah, I see it comes right up. Let me do that. Right here. Man Against the Masses. That's who you're talking about right there. So yeah, Poplar. Let's do this. So okay, good. Very cool. Pretty darn awesome, man. So we've got popular preparedness. Let me do a subscribe here. Dun, dun, dun. The Safety Doc has subscribed to you. What do we have here? All right. Cool. John is saying to CNT, so family services got a call. Wow. Oh, here's Neil McCoy Award, Dan I allegedly in the Quash. Those are three that I watch every day, right? The Quash doesn't do a daily show, probably like twice a week. Dan I allegedly does about 30 minutes. Neil McCoy about 30 minutes also. Neil's from Great Britain. Dan is from the States. Neil is ex-military. Dan is just ex-business. So good shows. It's Ron Wayne, who's now school board. That's where change happens. So let me kind of catch up here. Z said busy, very busy. So yeah, anyway, I got we got all this stuff out today, and I was live cutting. This is really dangerous. Well, I don't know if it's really dangerous, but like I'm sitting there like snipping the wires while I've got it plugged in to kind of see where the wires are. So every once in a while, bzz, I'd be like, oh, damn it, got the wrong one. But it sure made the process a lot faster. And I had on a rubber electrical glove also. So, and I wasn't standing in a pool of water. So I knew it wasn't in for any big thing, but yeah, I decorating Christmas stuff. It's not my flair. My wife does all the finesse stuff with spruce, bendable spruce stuff around the pillars in the front, but it looks nice. I'm glad when it's done. So then putting it away kind of sucks too. But well, Doc, I have been a bit depressed. Do I have to lay down before we talk? Oh no, buddy. So yeah, moist stuffing. Yeah. So I could go for a bag of Doritos right now, but I'd have to go like for the spicy Doritos because that's just kind of normal Doritos because they've just really thinned them out. We had 3 snowmen stand together and their heads move. That's cool. Yeah, I have nothing that moves anymore, but it looks pretty cool. You know, like looks nice around here. And also because we're at the top of a hill, so people on the bottom, you know, our house is very visible because then it kind of curves after that. So, and we have stone in the front of the house, so the light reflects off of it. Like I said, we used to do more. Like I had that really 150-foot rope light in that tree and swirl that thing up. That was pretty cool, but I'm like, so that's scaled back. But I think we're looking at it today, and our neighbors took out those 2 trees between our properties, and I think we could actually continue to decorate the bushes and a lilac tree on the north side of our house. I think it would look pretty cool. So, but I'm just glad it's done. I brought in the hose reels today too, and so In a way, it was a downer to be confronted with reality, but he had good idea about better to know than see the world through rose-colored glasses. Yeah, John. Yeah, just I think one of the things too that he mentioned, we didn't expound on this, and I knew he had about 70 minutes coming into this, but the social credit score is almost a given, right? That's just going to happen, and it's already happening. Think about some big profile people that are banks are coming out saying you're not going to bank with us anymore because we don't share your values, right? Or your values aren't aligned to ours, so take your money elsewhere. Like, who would have thought that would have been a thing 5-10 years ago? And I think this is becoming one of the things I learned from Clay Martin. So Clay Martin is the author of several books, including Concrete Jungle. So Clay was on the show. Let's do this. Let's bring Clay's stuff up. Jeez, that's not what I want. That's just me. I just brought up I brought up the show here, right? It's not that it's that complicated, Doc. Right here. So, Concrete Jungle, Prairie Fire, and so right there. Do we have Amazon top Clay Martin titles? So right there, Wrath of Wendigo is his current one. But so yeah, he was a guest on the show, and but one of the things that Clay talked about is and Clay is former military, and he said, don't announce your affiliations, right? Do not put a bumper sticker on your car that says I voted for whatever candidate, right? And don't do these things, because there's somebody who's going to be offended by that in today's society, and they're going to either take it out in your vehicle or take it out on you in road rage. And then, as kind of Lee was saying, are you going to trust that you're going to go before a judge or a DA and they're going to prosecute, right? So do not announce your affiliations. Like, I had very strong political opinions, and where I was aligned coming into the election on Monday, I did not share that publicly. Did not come on and say, here's who I'm endorsing, or here's what I think school safety looks like if this candidate wins or whatever. And I knew that, right? But I didn't want to share my affiliations. Now, had the election, after the election, then I think you can come on and you can say those things. But to announce your affiliations, I keep shrinking when I'm in this chair. So I keep it in adjusting myself, otherwise I'm just like 3 inches below where the mic level is. But you don't want to announce your affiliations. It's a bad move. Because as Clay brings up, which is a really good point, you do not know how someone's going to interpret that. You put a bumper sticker on your car, either it's a political bumper sticker, or if it's whatever, NRA, or could be whatever it is, right? And maybe the city that you're in. And the way the world we live in today, someone can look at that and say, oh, you're whatever, boom. And then they, kick the side of your vehicle, or they're chasing a highway or something like that. It just doesn't, and put a yard sign in for anything, I'm voting for, against, or, whatever statement you want to make with a yard sign. Like, don't do it. Pretty house, nice decor, not overdone. Well, thank you, Twisted Art Lady. Appreciate that. And from you, that means a lot, because you have an eye for art and what makes sense. So I do have one question. I'm a little uncertain here as of, geez. Okay, just a second. Here. I'm a little uncertain as to these two deer. So as you're looking up, you're kind of getting the butt end of the one deer. But if you're going in front of the house, it makes sense because you see the deer, and then this one is in the background, and because it has the antlers, right? It shows a little bit of depth. And I only have so much cord here; I can't get real creative. I don't want to I kind of want these deer grouped together. I don't want them in front of the yard because we have the house stuff. So at night, like our stone, this is all lit up because the incandescent shows on the stone. Not that we have any other spotlights, we don't, but this is all subtly lit. So it does look really nice. And then I was thinking basically to extend over here and go on these little bushes, which I forget the hell their name is, and then we have we have a big lilac on the corner here, but we could decorate that and then a smaller one. So there would be some different sizes that would go along. And then I think it would look nice to kind of wrap it. And then actually, this would be visible from down the hill. So I think to take it, and there's the air conditioning unit, but we won't do anything with that, but just to kind of wrap it around. But because it does look really nice. And here's the maple tree. I used to rope this thing with a big swirly pattern, and it looked really cool. But now it's growing, so I don't want to get up real high on that. So it's a safety thing. And anyway, we have this fire bush that's lit, so not like we need a whole lot. But yeah, I mean, the deer are nice. I don't know. This one I'm kind of questioning, like, should I have that one? Should I change the position of this one? So, but then I'm also on a hill, so like if I put it sideways, that's not real good because it could tip over. So it kind of has to be like, I don't know. Maybe it's just fine. Maybe I'm overthinking this. In the back, that's kind of a cool look, but I'm probably overthinking it. Damn it. So, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. So, hello, Jim. What did I just do? I gave you a star. Well, I don't even know what that means. I've never seen that before. The ability to star. Okay, I'm kind of learning stuff. Mike, don't you know Christmas starts after Halloween? So, yeah, and what we did today, right? Today was 73. It was overcast, but 73 degrees, and the ground was warm, so it's easy to like put the spikes in for the deer. And tomorrow will be 37, and then the next 10 days will be in the 30s. So to be outside, it just sucks to try to decorate when it's cold. And then the cords aren't very bendable, and it's harder the ground isn't as easy to pound stakes into. So today was like, it just made sense to be out there today and to get this stuff done. Laughs are always better than Twitter. Look at you guys there. So by the way, as you look at the design in the back, do you think my tentative plan makes sense? So let me actually move this out. So, and then let me do this just a second. All right, I'm back. Okay. So this is what's in back of me. My thought here is to take over where the books are. So you would see above the books. That would be this, the 3 degrees, the 3 diplomas would move over. And then also there's a bigger frame for the doctoral degree. It's like 19 by 17, so it's pretty good size. I would put that probably right above where the mic arm is, like on the back wall. And then I'm not sure where I would put my Professor of the Year award. I'd have to, maybe that would go up a little bit. I'd have to see. So all the academic stuff would kind of stay over on the left side. And then on the right side would be Coop's artwork right above the guitar. So kind of right where the hole is in the guitar, I guess, right? Is you'd see the cord would go right up there, and that's where that would be. And then the record would be somewhere along here, like it might be where the current diplomas are or something like that. But so the right side would be all basically kind of artistic, and then the left side would be academic as I'm looking at it. So everything above the books, and I think that makes sense. I think it would have a good feel to it, to do that. And then as I look the way that the lights are in, I think it would also have a nice kind of reflection off of this wall, possibly with Coop's artwork. And then I wouldn't have anything over here that would be glossy, that would be reflecting, because obviously the degrees would have glass and things like that. So, but yeah, very cool. So when we had, so this house apparently was built in 75, although the deed says 78, but again, the owners came in and said 75 and other people said 75. So the stone on the chimney and inside on the fireplace room is the same stone as the front. We've never had to do any tuck pointing on the stone. It's to this day, like, it's amazing. There's no cracks in the mortar. There's no, I mean, it's just like perfect. So we are so thankful for that, that we've never had issues with this. I never power wash it. Like, I just will soap it up with a sponge now and then and just hose it down. But I never, ever take the power washer to the stone. But yeah, and here's the concrete curbing we had put in, and it works its way around. That stuff is awesome. That was one of the best investments. The squirrels used to eat the plastic stuff there. So then I added about 1,000 pounds more of rock. So that goes 6 feet from the wall or from the house over. So pretty gosh darn cool, right? There's our neighbors. Dun, dun, dun. So, but yeah, so let me do so Mike is saying, let me get myself back to a normal. No, I don't want to do that. I had something weird going on with the camera. And then it was saying, do you want to recognize this camera? And I'm like, of course I do. What the hell's going on here? So there we go. All right. Are we good? Mike is saying, I'm not a fan of decorating for Christmas, but it makes Mama happy. So you all know the rest. Yep. Yeah. If it was me just here, I wouldn't be doing a lot of decorating, but obviously, with my kids but as they get older, we've kind of scaled back some of the stuff too. So, but I'm not real into decorating. But it looks good. So the Smurf phone said it was 69 today, but it's getting cold soon. Yeah. So we've got this big drop. And then of course we've got the next 10 days will be in the 30s. And it's winter in Wisconsin. So like, it's just not going to get better than that. But like I've said, we made it to the 10th and we still had 70-degree weather, which is really a treat because, we've had it where we've basically got to the middle of October and it just shuts off. It's in the 30s then. So even if this winter gets really cold, by the time you get to like April 1st in Wisconsin, you still might get a snowstorm or so, but then it's gone pretty fast. Like, it's going to warm up and summer is just around the corner. So psychologically, plus, the daylight savings time. And so I feel really good about this winter, and the first like snow or two isn't going to stick because the ambient heat in the soil is going to melt things. So we're really good. So this is Twisted Art Lady. I love your stuff, by the way. I do. I love your channel and the stuff that you make. So thank you. It's supposed to be cooler in Texas this weekend. Whoa. My anniversary is tomorrow. Well, happy anniversary. My hubs is taking me to a private cabin in the woods. I'll be in a hot tub in the cold all weekend. Isn't that cool though? That sounds like it'd be really awesome. Where my parents built their house in 92, the people that built the house next to them put a hot tub. So, and that's northern Wisconsin. So they would be out in winter, not my parents, but the neighbors would be out in their hot tub, and it would be 25 degrees outside, right? But they would be in their hot tub out on the concrete slab. And I just thought it was really cool. So yeah. Well, that's good for you, Twist Lee. That sounds like a blast. Yeah, very cool. This is Man Against the Masses. Do you suppose that there will be less Christmas lighting this year due to energy? I bet you there will be. And actually, the shit that we put out there is not LED. So it'll cost me to run that. So yeah, that display will cost me $200-300 to run this year. It's just one of those things. But yeah, because that's not LED lighting. So we're talking about that too. Like we need to just convert everything over to LED. And then again, I need to go and cut all the wires off the deer and just like make them all LED. But yeah, I think it will. It was weird though. Man Against the Man says, Halloween, we expected there to be a cutback in our neighborhood. And my daughter came home with most candy she's ever come home with, and like full-size candy bars. And like one of her friends like said, here, like, she had this big bag of candy. She's like, feel the weight on this, like, Mr. P. And I'm like, like seriously. And I thought, wow, this is the year when people aren't going to put their lights on and they're not going to decorate. And it was the opposite. We had more people participating in Halloween in our neighborhood than ever. We had really big displays people put on. Not that it necessarily cost them a lot of money, but it cost them kind of time and ingenuity. Like those people that had the crashed Toyota in their yard, their $1 million house, and the zombies running around. But I would say, yeah, energy, and Halloween's a one-time thing, right? But I would say, unless you have LED stuff, people are probably going to cut back on that. That would be my take. So, let's see here. We'll be celebrating Christmas in July. Oh my God. I saw there's a new Ralphie movie coming out, A Christmas Story. A contemporary one, but I think like logically they had to place it in like the 1960s because it was originally filmed in the 30s. Like it wouldn't have made sense to do it like today. I don't know, but I'll probably go and see it. Yeah, and you guys know this, like I've shared this. I'm not a big fan of Thanksgiving and Christmas. I do not like getting together in groups. So like for that type of stuff, it's not that I don't like the people. I just don't like that stuff. So what is it here? The next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, I'm not looking forward to. I know that sounds bad. I don't want to put out there in a bad way, but I don't know if anybody else feels that way. So you're like, oh, Doc, you're not alone. Like I feel the same way, but I'm just not into that. Misty saying, I bought 4 boxes of new lights. I'll deal with the bill later. So yeah, we also have one of our neighbors is elderly and they rarely get out. So we actually positioned some of the deer so they could see them from their house. So that was a little bit that went into that. So it changed it up. How long has this stream been on? How long has this been going on, this live stream? So I started this at 7:00 with the legal man. He had to leave by 8:15. So that's the show started at 7 to accommodate the legal man. So Jim's like, shut it down, Doc. Shut it down and eat that bag of Doritos. So I could eat a whole bag of Doritos right now, by the way. I have a meeting that I'm supposed to have tomorrow morning at 8:30. And then I was like, I don't know. Kind of an 8:30 on a cold morning. This person then contacted me and said, can we move it to like 1:15? I was like, sure. So actually kind of helped me out because I wasn't, I don't know if I was in the Friday morning mindset for a meeting. Check my first message. We need to talk about book. Oh my God. Okay. Dude, I don't know how to search back on the messages and try to timestamp it. So is it something you can post again or that you can email me here at gmail.com? So yes, certainly. Misty Mrs. Wayne's, whose lights are like, oh my goodness. Mike. Oh, but they don't think about the UTO waste incinerator down the river from me in Steubenville, Ohio. Good point, Mike. Heath, every time I hear global warming, I let my truck idle in the driveway for an hour. Yeah. I've said this where, we were on this trajectory with technology to get in the next 20, 30 years to cross over to a point of kind of a singularity, to make it, basically the whole use of internal combustion engines was being phased out anyway, technology and solid state batteries, but that's was on a course of the next 20, 30, 40 years that was just going to happen. So to force everything suddenly in like 3 years on everybody, like why? Like in this macro, if we pull back at 1,000 years and look at people and stuff like this, like what's the difference of 20, 30, 40 years when it's naturally going to happen, right? And this transition would occur instead of pushing everybody in this direction right now, forcing everybody in this direction. Safety, I hit the wires pretty well. Just one black cord hanging down now. Very cool, buddy. Yeah, that is awesome. So yeah, once I get it, I'll figure out what I want to do on my end here on that cord. But like you see, like I got those big seams in the back. So obviously to run a black cord down one of those is pretty inconspicuous. So, oh my God, man against the, jeez. Oh my God, man against the masses. Just looked at the old IG account. So that's BS, Doc. The cities absolutely need the suburbs and countryside for food and clean air. The concrete jungle is filthy. True, concrete jungle. Got it, Jim. Yeah, watch his YouTube channel. Very cool. Your 10 or even 20 cords of firewood per winter will not and cannot make a serious change to climate if the wood is dried and seasoned, right? And the fact is, like one volcano, right? One forest fire, one factory burns down. I mean, all of these things, if you were to calculate, what happens. So yeah, it really, it's really strange. And like I said, I've had these conversations now with the people that sold us the fireplace and, who make their living off of selling fireplaces and stuff like that. And I'm like, what if this actually happens? Like, what if you get enough people and they pass some legislation, right? And, out of 72 counties in Wisconsin, you maybe would have 4 that would go along with this and the others wouldn't. They absolutely would not. So, yeah, it's strange. Like, can you get to this point where you ban new fireplaces being built in the state in homes? So I don't know. I try not to think about it, but I'm kind of like, I don't think we're far off from seeing someone try to civilly sue a neighbor saying your fireplace is contributing to my asthma. And then, of course, it's all these expert witnesses and people coming in, and I don't know. And then would your insurance company just say, you've got a fireplace, like, and we have a liability policy for you, and we're going to drop it unless you, or not. I don't know. Nate saying, what's popping, people? I only had 3 arrests today. Nate. So, Safety Doc, this is the video for how to work the LEDs. I suppose I should pay attention to that one. All right, I will. Cool. That's awesome. Neighbor has a deer light hanging in tree with coiled red lights under it. Nice. I thought if I was really into it, there's some things I could do which could be really neat. Like I could shine floodlights up at like the maple tree I think we've got a really nice setup without overdoing it. But if I really wanted to get into it, there's stuff I could do. But I don't know what it gets a little bit artificial, when you're shining these images up on your garage door and stuff like that. And so I kind of I'm very comfortable with where we're at on that. All of this coming from our government. The US of A funds the United Nations the most, and then China. Yeah, no kidding. I'm gonna have, I don't know who I'm gonna bring on to talk about this. Maybe Chad Elkins of the Elkins Hour. I think Chad would be a good one to bring on about this. Like, just to opine, like, what would happen if Social Security had an expiration date, or your payments? So, meaning like you're going to get Social Security, but you have to use it. It would be in form of like a digital dollar type thing. You have to use it within 36 months. And you would have incentives, like you could use it at certain places and it might get you 5% more than traditional cash or whatever. But at the end of 36 months, it expires. It's gone. So of course it keeps it in the system. But again, like the question, and I think this is where we get into the legal man and stuff, like if you get 50% of the people to agree to it because the dust has been thrown in their eyes and the politicians are saying this is a great thing because it keeps money moving in the economy and for all these projects for new roads and all this, which is just like, politician speak, right? But I think it can really, I think that could get traction. I'm not for it at all, but I think it could get traction. And then what do you do, right? Because there wouldn't be like, do you want your Social Security payment to be, I can star a comment. Oh, okay, now I get it. That's kind of it's a new feature. So, do you want your Social Security so it expires or not? And if it doesn't, you're not going to get as much. And if it expires, you get more. Or something like that. Or would you not even have a choice? Would you be like, it's going to expire? But I'll talk to Chad and see if he wants to come on and kind of talk about that. Barnaby Sanchez, our good friend from Sanchez, Idaho, says, hey, C&T, I've got some serious health issues I'm dealing with, but buddy, take care. Man, I'm sorry to hear that. So we have this isn't at all related to what you just said, but we have a festival foods in town. And on Fridays, it's Fend for Yourself Fridays at my house. So at noon I go and they have a big hot buffet and then you can load up on fish and potatoes and stuff. And then that kind of holds me over for the whole day. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But yeah, I have to do that a little earlier because of that meeting at 1:15. So I am, by the way, I am going to return to my consulting. So I had to make a decision here in the last week whether I was going to do that or not because I'm retired, but kind of retired. Like I still teach a few classes, but I consulted like nuts back in 2020 because right with the pandemic, you try to get as much money as you can because who knows what's going to happen. I was doing it all down here in the studio. So, but I stopped in 2021 in the summer and I said, I need time for myself. And I was finishing the book, Velocity of Information. By the way, please post a review on Amazon. It's been at 54 reviews for too long. So please post a review on Amazon for the Velocity of Information. So this makes a hell of a book, right? It's a hell of a book as a gift. And then the audiobook will be out April 12th, although it's already available for pre-order. It's done. School of Heirs, Rethinking School Safety in America. But as we got into tonight's show with our guest, Hobbes Leviathan, government overreach, big part of this book. You can get this $22 on eBay. It's through publishing house, right? Roman Littlefield, my publisher. I did the audiobook. It's $10.99 on Downpour, and 44 other places, Spotify, that sell the audiobook, but they tend to like price it like, even though I said it's $10.99, they'll be like, well, we're going to charge $13.99. I still get my percentage off it, but I'm like, no, it's $10.99. But yeah, School of Airs. So somebody emailed me today and said they had bought this book, and we're going to leave a review. So I appreciate that. But a lot of people like ultimately don't leave reviews. I know things get busy, but if you can leave a review, if I wake up in the morning, there's a review for either of those, that'd be awesome. So what was I doing here? To CT Barnaby, sorry to hear that, brother. Keep taking, keep kicking ass, Barnaby. You're the man. Good night to John H. John, thanks you for being here. And you had some great questions that we brought up when we had the legal men on. So thank you so much. All right, my friends, the little ones, ear infection. Oh, sorry, buddy. Sorry to hear that. So thank you for stopping in. Have a good night. Thank you for being here, Nate. Thank you very much. That's my address at Gmail. Get a hold of me. So yes. I just looked up A Christmas Story. Well, I didn't have HBO Max, so I will not see it. But they always show that thing, dude, on TNT and the traditional channels on Christmas. There's like a 24 hours on TNT of A Christmas Story. So the original one, which came out in 83, and then the other one I think is coming out in theaters this fall. So, which is like so it's basically like Ralphie 30 years later, and there's something going on. He comes back to his hometown. I don't know. It's probably okay. I've seen some commercials for it. And by the way, here's Ron Wayne.
Holy shit, a ghost. Do you mind moving out of the way? You're blocking the TV.
Oh, shit. Sorry, man.
It's okay. Thank you.
All right, that was Ron Wayne. We saw a ghost. Barnaby Sanchez, you'll be fine for passing gas on proper PPE in California, so I've heard. So, yeah. So I have several friends that live in California, and relatives also. And the thing is, what if you do... So I have a friend, right, that they had the water meter put on their house, right? And what if you exceed that, right, limit? Or what if you're violating some rules and the state jumps in and says, we're not only going to fine you, we're going to take your property. So, that's where the legal man is saying the juries can come in and kind of straighten things out. But we've seen, and also I'll bring Zippy back on the show to talk about intellectual property rights, because it's become very severely punitive, where if you are, I don't know, found guilty or something, instead of a fine, it's like a fine plus like your property. So let's kind of figure that stuff out. This is Mike to Barnaby Sanchez, our good friend Mike McLuhan. That is excessive emissions, which requires an exhaust after treatment device for your person. Holy smokes. Sounds like Taco Town. Too much bean enchilada. So, it's crazy. Or a cost prohibitive license. Yeah, no, you're right on, Jim, right? Diesel exhaust fluid, horse piss. Look it up. Talking about horse piss, let's see how my fantasy football team is doing tonight. I'm in first place, but I play in 2 leagues and I'm in last place in the other league. So, it is what it is. I won both leagues last year. And then I just fell off the map in the one, but, it's looking good for both, to be honest with you. So I'm still in a league at the School for the Blind, where I was an administrator for several years. The group gets together and does a league, and I'm 6-3 and in first place, and I have the points lead. So I have like a 2-game lead in the playoffs. So it's looking good. Looking good. So, That pesky ghost, this Ron Wayne. Ron's like, would you move over? Watching TV. Tired of sanitized, unfunny. Everything is a remake these days, right? I think, I don't know if there's a remake coming out of, I heard of Back to the Future or something. I'm like, don't remake these things. Like, honest to God, contact me and Andrew and Ron Wayne and Mike McClune, and we will come up with a brand new show for you. It's not going to be a remake of Smokey the Bandit. It's not going to be Back to the Future. Well, give us 3 days, $10,000 cash. We'll give you a box office hit. I'm not sure what it is, but I promise you we will deliver it. And but yeah, all these remakes are just getting, oh my God, like I don't need to see a remake of the Incredible Hulk, right? Like, come on. I feel so fortunate growing up in the 80s when we had the Indiana Jones, authentic trilogy, and you still have Star Wars coming out, right? And yeah, Back to the Future, and I mean we could go on, Rocky 4. I mean, just but now I just, yeah, everything is a remake, right? Like, it's so strange. I don't know. It's a good point. You are the carbon California wants to reduce. No kidding. I think and that's where I think with Chad Elkins on the show, I would have a question of saying, how do you protect your assets? How do you protect your assets from people who want to, or a government? Let's not say people, let's say a government. So, Chad being an accountant, right? And a question of how do you protect yourself? Is it through, I don't know. I mean, just what would be a way to like, if someone said to Chad, I think government overreach is getting to be too much in taxes. Is it Roth IRAs? Is it overseas bank accounts? What is it to try to gold and silver? I don't know. Not to put him on the spot, but it's one of those things where I look currently at portfolios and things, and I'm like, in 30 years, what's to say the government doesn't put a surtax on all 401ks? So when you take out a 401k, right, there's an automatic 5% American equity tax that's put on, right? And this happens already in Great Britain. My neighbors are from Great Britain. They own a home in Great Britain. So they, we talk about this almost weekly. But so what do you do? And if it's, how do you position yourself? How do you deal with that? I don't know. It's the agorizer. The agorizer. Case of whiskey. Probably from Old Humble Distilling Company from Humble, Texas. You betcha. It's Ron Wayne at The Burbs. That's a great movie, by the way. The Biden administration is following the plot of Ayn Rand's magnum opus, Atlas Shrugged, yes, to a T. Movies are available if you don't want to read the 1,100-page paperback. Yeah. Stefan Molyneux used to opine about Ayn Rand's magnum opus a lot, Atlas Shrugged. So some of you have at least 2 YouTube tabs open. It's good for you. Helps the show. Thank you for Mike McClune and for Coop for the super chats. Appreciate it. So I have 7 tabs open, but it's all on YouTube. Look at this. Twist Artley is going to subscribe to those. She's checking the ads, checking them twice. So it's kind of funny because now the show's been monetized for a week, right? So a little bit of ad revenue coming in. Very thankful for the generous super chats, that have come in. So, but it's fun. And I do think, right, that when I have guests on, I have Lisa Lenny on Monday. The following Monday, I have Mike Dahl. For a channel to be monetized, it is one of those things now, people who appear on a lot of shows on YouTube and just a lot of media, they have to measure their time. And I think having that is a threshold that appeals to them, right? they're like, okay, like you've been doing this for a while and you've got this, you do blog posts and whatever. And so it is one of those things that I think stands out and helps the show get people like the Legal Man on it. So, so by the way, let's do a little book promo here. So School of Errors, Rethinking School Safety. This is available $22 in paperback off of places that sell books, including Amazon. I wrote this under a publishing contract. This is very well put together. You're not going to find typos or weird things in here. So this is also a terrific gift for parents. If you have a friend who's a teacher, right? It's good for them, just as a taxpayer to understand how the whole deal is with school safety funding and what gets determined for, we're going to put bollards in front of our school. Really? Why? Why are you going to put bollards in front of this building, when it's up on kind of a rise area, and just doesn't make any sense. Then Velocity of Information, this released in April. Nothing like it. 471 endnotes, but they're all at the end of chapters. So meaning as you read through this, you're just going to see, number 1, number 8, whatever. That's a citation. 12 interviews. This is like a very intellectual story told around a fire, preferably a fire pit, not your house on fire. But, and again, there's nothing like it. And boom. How do people handle extended periods of chaos? And if you know somebody, which you probably do, who's been dealing with that, how can you help them? And there's a great section in there too about history, World War II, the Committee for National Morale, and kind of how that's been missing today, what it would look like if it actually manifested today. So great book. School of Errors is out there in audiobook. I narrated it, again, $10.99. Velocity of Information is available in audiobook. Unfortunately, though, you can't download it until April 12th by contract. That was narrated by Ben Hawk. So it's really good. I'm working on a third book called School Safety in America, Rhetoric versus Reality, but it's really only in the proposal stage right now. But since I've written 2 books, I kind of know how this works. So, yeah. Look at this. This is the engagement challenge from Jim. He has 41 tabs open. He's running 600 gigabytes worth of RAM right now to keep this going. And he has the absolute best package on Spectrum. So he pays $700 a month for it to keep all this going. So look at that. Safety Doc, how large is your lot? Are you talking like where I live? Because I don't know. I had it surveyed a year ago because we had the concrete project done. I had to know where my boundaries were for that. So, and it's a little, how should I say? It's a little misleading. Let's do this, because the city owns so like the front of my maple here, like this ring about 2 feet in front of that's city. This is owned by the city from here out to the road. And in the back where this oak tree is, that is my boundary in the back. But then it continues, and this is park land over here. It's like all brushy and wooded, and then there's a power line going over, so you can't build over it. And there's nothing the city has in there. They have like their main park stuff is down further. So, so actually my yard looks a lot bigger than it is because I have a lot of, like I said, I have the city land in the front and then city land in the back. So I just mow it and take care of it. But it gives the illusion, right, that your property is much bigger than it is. Otherwise, my boundary here ends, about right here. And then over on this side, the fence is the property line. The fence is owned by the neighbor. So, I don't know if that would be half an acre, maybe, of my property. So it's not any bigger than that, but I mow more than that because, again, there's an illusion that you have much more property than you do, which works in your advantage because that's, again, in the front, the city owns that going out to the road in the back that's non-buildable because it's under the power line, and the city owns it as parkland. So it gives this perception that we have a lot larger property than we do. So standard suburban theft. The right of way is wide enough for 3 garbage trucks side by side. Yeah, they and it also impacts when I did my concrete project, I couldn't bring it out any further because the ordinances have, you have to be 8 inches from a property line for a permanent structure. So I could go 8. That's as far as I could go out. And then I could start to I could have pulled it out a little bit further, but then I would add weird angles to work with. And you don't want that. You don't want to ever sell a house and somebody like, why did you do like these weird angles on this concrete pad? Right. So, and then I couldn't really go closer to the road because, well, if you look at this, the fire bush is almost where if sidewalk were to ever come through here, it would be right on kind of the road facing side of the fire bush. So I couldn't have pulled that concrete pad much further. So you just run into these limitations, right? The city marks all this stuff off and they're like, here's what you can do. And it is what it is. But you can clear the power line right away yourself, Doc. I put the spruce trees back there. They're in the park. I don't own them. I planted them back there and I maintain all of that for the city. It's weird because for 20 years, I've maintained all of that for the city. And it looks really cool. And there's like a path. There's a snow hill in the back there, a sliding hill for the neighborhood kids like the city has. And I maintain like the path that goes through that and all of that. Yeah. So the power company does a scrappy job. Yeah, they when they were clearing that out, I remember that was like 20 years ago when they came through and did like a thorough clearing out of that. And the dude said, "Do you want me to take all this brush out?" And I was like, "No, because actually that's a really good barrier between me and my neighbors. Then also anyone who thinks they kind of hike through that park area, I don't want anyone to think, oh, I can just like walk up to your house." It provides a really good visual barrier in summer. And so I'm like, no, dude, just leave this here. Like, no problem with it. So I'm glad I did that because otherwise, but I did have them clear off that one area so I could plant the 2 spruce trees. So again, like my property has this illusion it's much bigger. So, no, I meant that. Yeah. They did cut down some trees, but then they cut them down like a foot up. So I had to deal with the stumps that were back there. So of course my kids are going through and they're like, I pulled the sled through and there's a big hole in the bottom of the sled or something like that. I'd be like, oh God. So I have to go out there and I'd have to cut all it down further. So, yeah, when I was out biking, God, there was this company that was trimming the trees back from the road and they did a horrible job. Like dull blades and stuff look awful. Trees are just really damaged. Gotta hit the showers. Have a great night. It's our friend Egg Riser. Thanks, buddy. It's Benning Ballistics. Look at this guy. Hey, buddy. All right, Egg Riser. So let me bring up, let's see what the temperature is here. $51. So yeah, then tomorrow 35 for a high, 34 after that, and then the whole week is in the 30s. So I have to bring up my winter stuff. But I don't know. It is what it is. Like I said, we made it pretty far into this month. Do we have any rain coming in? We never had the storms. They were telling us, oh, tornadoes and high winds. Never had any of that. And let me look at the radar right now. Nah, a little bit of rain, which is good. It's good for my grass and stuff, but otherwise, nothing big. They were really like hooping that up. Interesting. Wouldn't it be fair if the city compensate you for mowing their lawn? Yeah, probably. We had somebody who tried to do that in our community, was saying like they had maintained some of this property, and it actually didn't work out well for them because I don't know what the deal. I forget what the case was, but they were trying to annex. Here's the deal: they were trying to annex like 3 feet of city property, and they said I've maintained it for like the last 20 years, and there's like 50 feet back there. I'm trying to get like 3 feet so they could put something back there, then like a shed, and the city wouldn't go for it, and it ended up being in the newspapers, and so I don't know. For me, it extends my backyard. If I take care of that. And then in summer, it really makes it more isolated because that all grows up, and it looks like you're kind of in more of a suburban rural type area when you're in the backyard. So, but yeah, the city doesn't, but at this same time, I'm kind of okay with that. Like, I kind of like having that back there. I think at one time the city was talking about putting a trail back there. I'm like, oh God, if they do that, then I've got to like have a countermeasure because I don't want people going off a trail back into my backyard. But so safety doc doesn't seem like a jealous streamer. I don't think so. Or let the safety doc buy the right of way. And we also have like power lines. So our neighborhood, oddly enough, was built. Everything was in ground, so we don't have any power poles. But that's not the deal in our city. Like you get out of our neighborhood, and most of the neighborhoods still have power poles. The power isn't in ground. It's really weird. So, and then we have like a big power line that goes through about 200 yards in back of our house, like a county power line. Not a big deal because it's like 200 yards back and you not really see it. That's actually a benefit because it prevents people from building in that area. But I wouldn't mind trying to buy a little bit of land to put a shed, but it'll never happen. So I've just kind of reserved that. I think what I have to do is I have to revisit my garage because I've dug those for rafters, and the rafters are rated to have a load. So meaning like if I put, I do have an area I can access in the garage, but I don't have steps that come down. I have to do a ladder. I've been contemplating whether it makes sense to actually finish off kind of like a room above the garage, but not like a room you'd actually ever be in, just a room you could store stuff in and have steps that would come down. And then, because I think that would make sense, but I'm not quite sure. And then also like I could put more, I don't know. I could put more storage coming down from the ceiling because the ceiling's kind of high, especially in the front. I just don't know. I got to think about it a little bit. I've been here 20 years and it really hasn't been that much of an issue. And, my kids are getting older, so it's not like I really have to have a lot of stuff out there, like bikes and skateboards and stuff like that, hula hoops. And I mean, an acre of land in most suburban or rural is about 10 ounces of gold these days, a few 100 feet. It's just be some ounces of silver for a land patent. I've seen one. Yeah. I don't really haven't. So I had my property surveyed a year ago, and then that survey got turned into the city. And then how that worked is there's so long and it's the same people that survey for the city. And then there's a period of like 30 days or something. If it's uncontested, then the survey becomes your property. So there really wasn't any surprise on that. Although I think I gained a few inches of property toward my neighbor to the south. And then of course, because they didn't contest it, not a big issue, but I needed to do that again before I did the concrete project because I had to make sure I wasn't going into the variance of the 8 inches between the property line and the concrete. It would have been maybe an issue with the city. My neighbor didn't care, but again, it's so hard to predict how people respond to those types of things, or how a city would respond. But if you buy silver or gold from the government, they must issue a land patent. Look it up. Holy smokes. I didn't know that. Look at Jim. I did not know that. Silver or gold from the government. So, wow. Didn't know that. What was the Dow Jones up today? Let's check this out. Oh, not Dow Jones futures. Oh my God. The futures are up again too. Dow Jones today. 1,200 points, 3.7%. So the interesting thing though is, right, so you're at 33,000. You're still down 6% for the year. But again, this is misleading, right? Because if you have $100 and it goes down 50% and then it goes back up 50%, you only have $75. So like most people are not just down 6% in their stock portfolio. So I can tell you personally, for me, that is not the case. So that sucks. But let's check over here. So yeah, after not doing consulting for, I don't know, a year and a half, I'm starting to band up again. So I've got a couple projects and I subcontracted a couple things out. And then what else do I have going on? I've got that going on. Then Monday's a pretty big meeting with one of my larger clients from 2000, 2001. And then when I stopped doing consulting, and let's see here, 761, 28. They were very sad when I stopped consulting. And then, let's check here. They were like, yeah, what can we do to keep this going? And I'm like, nothing, because I just don't want to do it anymore. It wasn't them, but it's not you, it's me. But so anyway, I reached out to them and said, hey, I am thinking about getting the band back together and doing some consulting. And they're like, all right, man. So Monday we're going to have a meeting, and it's kind of this two-edged sword, right? To get back into it, because it's good money. And I think the economy sucks and nothing's predictable. And so that's a good hedge against inflation, right? And but the other side is it really occupies my time then, right? So I can't just do whatever I want on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, or Thursday, or Friday. Although I don't do anything on Friday. Like I just tell people Friday's my own day for other stuff. So I'm not doing anything on Fridays, even though like tomorrow I'm at a meeting. But so, you know, it's a trade-off, but I do think I have to get back into it. And some of my greatest stuff has happened while I've been very busy. And so like I wrote both books when I was working full time. And so now as I get into the third book, I think I just kind of feel like this is kind of coalescing again. The third book, School Safety in America, Rhetoric versus Reality. And I think that's going to be good. I don't know if I'd write a fourth book after that, but and I really haven't even pitched this book yet, but I'm pretty sure like having two successful books out there wouldn't be a problem with it. Ilana is the best hype machine for the New World Order. Ilana is a better pitchman. Yeah, no kidding, right? And everybody pay $8, get a Twitter check mark. And then like now headlines today, Twitter could be going bankrupt. So the country that set its currency to Bitcoin has lost its ad. No kidding. Weren't there, Jim, wasn't it like Miami or some municipalities across the US took big stakes in Bitcoin, like up to 20%, I think, of their pensions. I was reading that tonight before I went on the air. There was in Pennsylvania, there was a city that did that, and they just said, we're screwed. because we're not going to be able to do our pension payouts. So, yeah, I mean, even with how stocks went up today, not that Bitcoin and cryptos correlate to stocks, but even though stocks were up, 3-4% today, Bitcoin still earned $20,000. So, I mean, if you're getting into that at $40,000 or $50,000 as El Salvador, right here, Jim saying, or as some of these municipalities, you're in bad shape. So look, it's Bolo. Miami Scammer Central. Gosh darn Miami. Look at that Miami. So, no kidding, right? So let me check this. I got to check something out here on the channel. Where are we at for subs? We are at 1,255. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. If you know someone who's interested in subscribing, say, hey, subscribe to this channel. Be awesome. That'd be really cool. I'd appreciate that. So we're doing pretty good here. Let me check. Monday night, I've got Lisa Lenny on the show, so I've got to get that thumbnail up. She's going to email me some info for that show. Trying to see. What do we got here? What do we got? So, I don't know. Okay. My guess is personal saving will go up in the near future. I'm with you. I think so. I'm a little concerned about interest rates because I thought interest rates would get to 5%. I still think that. But if we have a rise in the stock market that continues, interest rates might not move much beyond where they're at. And I was really looking at trying to lock some stuff in at 5%. So, currently you can get about, solid 4%. And I don't know, PenFed, or if they had 4% yet. Let me check where they're now, 3.85. But I was like, oh, and treasuries went down today for the first time in weeks. Treasury accounts have gone down. So that's a bad sign. So I gotta figure out what I'm going to do here, because if treasuries and those things start moving down, that's bad. Because I typically am a saver. I'm older, right? So I don't want to put a lot of risk stuff out there. I have a lot of, kind of secure stuff. So, might pay it to invest in ramen and Spam with the way the economy is going. Hormel. I saw the Spam factory once when I was in Minnesota. Yeah. And I think, Ron, you're right on that. Like, today is a big illusion. Today of the big stock market gain, right? And today will be the point where all these investment dudes will be telling their clients, well, look at this. Like, if you would have invested in a 1-year treasury note at 5%, like the market went up 5% today. So like the market just made this in a day. But the reality is, right, Microsoft and Disney and companies like that, they're still down 30% this year. So, one day, and the fact is, like, yesterday, the market was down 500. The fact it's up 1,200 today is really like a 700 gain between 2 days, which isn't that big of a thing. I mean, it's big, but, it's all an illusion. And, but I think it's where people try to look at this and then they show, oh, you would have missed out, right? Here, your treasury at 5%. Well, market went up 5% today. So got to keep your money in, right? Because you never know they always have these like weird things they tell you, like, oh, like you got to stay invested for a long term. Because if you be out of the market during this 10-year period for like these 3 days, your return would have been like 4%. So, and then there's always these little caveats, like, here's what your return would be, 10.2% with all dividends reinvested. Well, okay, I guess, like, but then also, like, but how about your fees that go to your brokerage firm? And I don't know. I'm just not into that. Spam. Jim, the poor people nuked nearly to death in the Marshall Islands. They ate almost all spam. I was a big fan of spam growing up. So fried spam on white bread, not the greatest for you, but I loved it. How many cans of chili does it take to stop a bullet spinning ballistics? That is a good question. Should make a video on that. I don't know. I'm going to say quite a few. I'd say at least like 27. Spam ain't bad if you fried. I'm with you, Misty Mrs. Wayne. So if I ever come down to the Kentucky area, fried spam where it's nearly crisp and it's on white bread, I'm there. Totally there. So I say 13. So I'm going to say 20. I'm going to say 27 cans. So, Mike McLuhan, man, more spam bots. Yeah, you guys have been doing a great job with those. So 5 Bolo, look at this. He's like, I'm going to 5. Depends on the You're right. The caliber is going to be everything with that. So I've noticed, by the way, Angus Hormel chili with beans is non-existent. Can't find it anywhere around here. Now they've brought back the Angus without beans, but not the same. So someday, if it comes back in stock, I'm going to like fill up the cart with that. It's good stuff. So, but yeah. What the hell? I'm trying to check through my stuff here. La da 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 da. I didn't get a whole lot of like email stuff for my birthday. I got a card from my place where I bought my car. So they're like, hey, happy birthday. So I guess let's check here, see if I got anything else cooking. Jesus, this is crazy. Oh, okay, got it. Interesting. One of my professional organizations that I'm a member of is going all digital for their publications in the future. Not surprising, but so I have to set up an account if I want to get it. But so not only are they dying young due to extreme radiation, they have the poor person's high calorie, low vitamins, minerals. They blow up both fat, water retention due to the whole salts. And yeah, got insufficient iodine, insufficient potassium, and filthy radioactive drinking water. You got it, Jim. Real Christmas tree or fake? The suit doc. We do a fake tree. We always have. So, yep. My daughters also put little trees, like 3-foot trees in their rooms, and they do them up really elaborate. And as soon as Halloween was done, they brought their trees up from downstairs and they started working on them. So we have several Christmas trees. They're all artificial, but one in the front room that you can see from the road, and then kind of the main one in the fireplace room, and then the girls have a couple. So there's at least 4. There's nothing down here, obviously, but when I was growing up, we also had a fake tree. We had a couple of years we had a real tree, but most is fake. And then my parents built a house in '92, and where they built the fireplace room was 2 stories, the ceiling, and they had this big tree. So for a number of years they had that thing in there, but now they've downsized. But how about you, Ron? How about you guys? Real tree? Or I can't do like the pole thing in here, which kind of sucks because I can do it in YouTube, but no, I can't. No. I think getting at the end of around my neighborhood, most people seem to do though a real tree, at least one, because you put them out and then the city comes and picks them up. And there's a lot of them out in the snowbanks after Christmas. Ex-Marine Murtha did that. He blocked minimum wage going through when the Marshall Islands were U.S. territories. Yikes. Why'd you do something like that? So, man, I don't know. So, yeah, pretty crazy. Doc, plant blue spruces in the government land. I did. They're back there. I don't know if I've got a picture of my brew. They were about 2 foot tall, maybe not even when I put them back there. My dad brought them down in 5-gallon pails, and then they took off. Soil sandy, and I'm going to be really sad if the city ever cuts those down for some reason. So let me bring up a picture of them. Shh, it's not what I want. It's not what I want. I don't want. Good. Okay. Here we go. Those are my spruce. So, yeah, this was in spring. So when I put my mulch back there, and then I dye the mulch 3 times a year. So it's a really cool kind of visual effect. So, but yeah, these were each 1.5 foot, little wispy things when they were put in the ground. And so they technically these are well onto city property by 40 feet. But they look nice, right? And they stay green all year. And I used to decorate these with white lights for Christmas, but then they got too tall. And but it adds a lot of depth to my backyard, and it also visually blocks out the homes on the other side. And it's a deterrent from anybody who's walking back there to try to like work their way through onto my property. So, but yeah, those when 20 years ago, literally 1.5 foot tall, little wispy things, now 50, 60 feet tall. So I would guess this one's on the left is 50 feet. I would think the one on the right is like 55, 60 feet. You kind of see the power lines up above too. So, but they look nice. They've held up really well. You know, they stand up to sandy soil. Run for city council. They cut them down. Yeah, I ran for city council. That didn't turn out well for me. It was an interesting thing. I shared it with the Legalman because when I ran, there was this hearing, not this hearing, this public thing, and so I was talking about stuff, and I made a couple fundamental mistakes because I said there was a new subdivision that was supposed to be built in the city, and then the economy went down, and they backed off of that, and I was advocating for that, and I probably shouldn't have said anything about that. And then I also said, when the airport eventually leaves the city and they put it somewhere else because it's not big enough and they want to put it somewhere else and it's landlocked, I said that could be redeveloped into residential, or, you know, it's right along the interstate. So I think 2 messages came out of that my opponent kind of twisted. Was one, like, you're going to be bringing in this additional housing and this liability for the city. You're going to back that. And the second was, we have a lot of airport enthusiasts, and you're going to shut down the airport. So I got defeated 3-1. Interesting. So kind of glad I honestly didn't get voted in, because I think it would have restricted some of the other stuff, especially in summer, that I like to do. But no regrets. So they only live a certain amount of time. They're 30, 40-year living tree. So Jim. So, well, they'll probably live as long as I'm here. After that, as soon as they die, they snap in the wind. Yeah. I wonder what it would be for the city then for me to say, hey, your trees fell over. And they'd be like, well, you planted those. I'm like, I didn't plant those. They're like, you said it on a podcast. I'm like, damn it, Jim turned me in. Do you have a P.O. box, mailboxes, etc., Dollar General, in easy driving range? Jim, do you have a P.O. box? I don't know. I do not have a P.O. box. The mailbox is on my house. We do have a Dollar General, and it is not far from us. It's not on our side of town, but it's not that far from us. Our town's 10,000 people, not that big. Yeah, I do have a PO. I don't have a PO box. The mailbox is my address. It's really weird too. In my neighborhood, the postal delivered to your house. They come over up to your house and put stuff in. A block down from me, everybody has to have a mailbox on the curb. So one thing I was told is like where I live, it's a wealthier part of town. So there's like, we don't have sidewalk. And because when I moved here, like I heard the story from some of the people, like they opposed it and they didn't. So there's certain oddities where I live, I think because of the positionality of that this was the wealthy part of town, which is now kind of migrated further. So I don't want to say like Doc is in this, you know the house I live in and stuff. I'm just saying though, this is kind of the story like this as a side of town developed. So that's why, for example, this area, the small area of maybe like 8 blocks, the postal carrier comes up to your house and delivers mail. Everywhere else, you have to put a mailbox out. So even on new construction, you have to do that. It's really strange. So don't let them take the airport out. Yeah. And see, I never said that. I said once there's a new airport, right? Then this airport doesn't make sense anymore. That then this could be developed. And I should have just stayed off those topics completely. And I don't know. But they took out ours, built ugly McMansions. That's probably what would happen. I don't know. Feasibly, I don't think you could keep 2 airports here. But you're exactly right, Jim. That's exactly what would happen here. Exactly. Those would all turn into McMansions. So bad trade. Look it up. So crazy. Talking about bad trade. I wonder how much Disney was up today. I do not own $3.71. So $90, which is still like a big time low for Disney. For the year, they are down 44%. Disney getting hammered, and they don't pay their dividend anymore. So yeah, Microsoft was up big today. That kind of pisses me off because I've been watching that for a while, but they pay a pretty peasly dividend. And the 5-year chart doesn't look good on Microsoft. I don't even know who the hell's running Microsoft right now. But the time to get into a lot of those would have been right around 2008, 2009. I had a friend, 2001, summer 2001. We were both attending school at EW Superior, Peggy. And she said, I'm going to invest, I don't know, $20,000, I think it was, in Amazon. And we're sitting, and I was like, I don't know, man. And this whole thing of like delivering stuff, I don't think it'll catch on. She's like, I don't know, but I'm going to do it. And she retired at age 53 or 54 because she just had made this massive amount of money. And I remember like when she retired, like she called me up and said, hey, like I'm retiring and I'm going to live off a pension I'll get years later, plus my Amazon stock. And I remember the day she bought it. And I was like, and she's a cool person, so I'm happy for her, you know. It's one of those things like, you know, you win the lottery. I'm not like, oh, like I can't be your friend anymore. I don't like you. Like that's not Doc. If you win the lottery and I know you, good for you, you know? So like the lot is 100 feet by 100 feet and the house is 80 feet by 80 feet and you look out your doorwell right into your neighbor's doorwell. Yeah. And I don't have that scenario where I'm at, which is good because, right, a lot of the new home construction I see, these homes are really, really close together. And then I also think that causes drainage issues. So, yeah, I'm glad. And one thing I've said too is in my neighborhood, every home looks different. So it's not like, oh, this is, you know, you go into an area and all the homes look the same where the garage is on the right instead of the left, but still otherwise the same. So I do appreciate that I live in a neighborhood where every home is different, looks different. So I think that adds character. And we have mature trees for the most part too, throughout the neighborhood. And so good stuff. You can't do just in-time delivery or receiving manufactured goods without an airport. You're right, Jim, right? So you'd have to have that. Yeah, so our airport is landlocked within the city. There's really nothing that could be done because really, like at the end of the runway, then beyond that is the interstate. So you really can't do anything there. But there is room out of town in the master plan to put in a airport. Doesn't have to be big enough for jets, but a C-130 spooky. Those things can haul a lot of stuff. Yes. Our current airport is adjacent to the armory. So it actually, I think, has a taxiway right to the armory, but that would only be, I guess, for like a helicopter to drop stuff off. Because there isn't any type of military craft that could land, and there's way, way too short. But I was checking that out during the pandemic. Like I would go there and see, like, is there action happening at the armory, or is the armory staging stuff near the runway? I didn't see anything. So, but join and teach Civil Air Patrol at the safety dock. Civil Air Patrol. That's like a Graham Wilson thing. What is... I've heard about that. What is it? Civil Air Patrol is a federally chartered nonprofit corporation that is also auxiliary Air Force. Support America's communities with emergency response, diverse aviation, ground services. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't fly. I never would fly. So does Civil Air Patrol get paid? No! You're a volunteer. So is it considered military? It's not. What does it do? During a disaster. Helps out. Kind of interesting. Huh. Found it December 1st, 1941. Interesting. Interesting, Jim. Instead of Young Marines, Civil Air Patrol is for Army Air Corps, Air Force. Wow, I didn't know that. Did not know that. So, what am I doing here? So, very cool. Very cool. So, how'd you guys like the Legal Man? Like, if we were to bring him back on the show, is there a specific topic? We got into not jury trial. Well, we did get to jury trial, but we started out with what the hell was it? Citizen's arrest. Which he's saying, don't do it. He came in it with a different angle though, because I was saying like something happens and the police aren't there and you apprehend somebody, like they're trying to kidnap somebody. And his angle was more like the police aren't doing their job. Like you've got drug dealers at the end of your street corner, right? And you do a citizen's arrest. But if the police aren't doing their job and the DA is unwilling to prosecute, the odds are it's not going to go anywhere. So, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. And I'd like to throw a few scenarios at him. And I have to think about that a little bit. I think what he said, though, gets in line with what I've been thinking. And I think like Joe Dolio states and other people like Leto's Law, for example, is you probably should consider a camera in your car. And you should probably consider a camera on your property because video evidence just weighs big, not only with a jury, but with the police. Like, how are the police going to write up a report? Well, if you show some video, it's a big thing. And I see that. I think it weighs in. I'm very much considering equipping both of our vehicles with dash cams. And also that I would put a surveillance camera. I have a porch. I wouldn't necessarily do a ring cam, but I do have a way that I could put a camera in the corner, which would capture everything. And actually people wouldn't know that it would be there. So I think it's a big point of having this video evidence. So thank you, Misty Mrs. Wayne, saying, I thought he was an awesome guest. Misty Mrs. Wayne is reading The Velocity of Information. So hope you're enjoying it. Yeah. Thank you. Legalman's point of view was valuable. Waste of time is the truth. Yeah. That's why I asked. So look at this. That's a good question, Jim. Really good question. Yeah. So when I ran for city council, there was a group that approached me that has a Facebook page and some other social media. And after I was at the debate, and they said, we want to endorse you. And we have like 10,000 followers in the county, which is like basically everybody in the county. I'm running for a city position, but, and I didn't agree to it because they also wanted some conditional stuff with that, not favors. It wasn't a quid pro quo, but they basically had an agenda for the community and was hoping I would align to that. Not that it was bad, but I was kind of like, no, not really. And then this other person kind of out of the blue wins 3-1 against me, who didn't even submit to an interview for the paper and didn't even live here like for more than a couple of years, which is really weird. But as I said, all things kind of happen for a reason. Kind of glad I didn't have that time commitment, but I would have done a good job. Back, sorry I couldn't really contribute much earlier. That was a fantastic interview. One of the best I've ever seen. He knows so much. Thanks, Bacon. Yeah. I was glad. And, you know, he is a smart guy, big social media following. So I was like, whoa. And I'm glad that he came on the show. I learned a lot. And it reminded me too of the discussions, and I would have a TJ Martin Eller listening to his show, and he'd say, your sheriff is so important if you live in an area that has a sheriff, right? So if you're rural and a sheriff is elected, not appointed, how that person can really be an asset for you if you're doing like appropriate things. They can, you know, be in your corner and decide what's going to get enforced and whatnot. If someone's trying to say, oh, you can't burn your fireplace or your wood burner because it's contributing to the CO2 levels. I found some great security cameras, not Amazon. Joe Dolio shares those periodically on his site and like little even pocket cams, which are $100 or less. But I think dash cam is kind of almost, I've heard a lot of lawyers advocate for it and say, you know, because, right, if it's your word against somebody else and you're thinking there's going to, especially if there's multiple vehicles involved and there's going to be some recreation of an accident scene and whatever, why not have the video? But I, you know, part of it for me was when I looked into that, the issue was that you had to plug it into your cigarette lighter. Right now, I don't smoke cigarettes in my car, but I already have like my Garmin in there, and so I don't want to do a splitter, and I just want something that basically can charge and be up there, or maybe it runs on AA batteries, and you know what I'm saying? Like I don't want a wire hanging down and some other stuff, so I'd have to look into a little more. My thought is vehicles will just come with this built in within 2-3 years. You'll just have a dash cam automatically built into a vehicle. But I think I would do that. And I think also with my house, I want to kind of change up some of the stuff that I have here. Yeah, when I do, well, the thing is like when I do consulting, a lot of that's recorded. So I'll just be like, hey, I'm going to record this meeting. And I usually say I'm going to record it so I can participate with you and I can go back later and pull out notes or specific information, which is true. But it's also, I want to make sure that if we have anything that we committed to during a meeting, that I have a record of it. So again, you know, my clients, that stuff's really thoroughly vetted. I never had anything go south in those cases, but I do just say, you know, let me record this so I can come back into it and pull out some of the information so I can participate in the meeting versus like being a note taker while trying to facilitate the meeting. So yeah, Wi-Fi, you're right. Wi-Fi can be a mess. Loving it. Still in chapter 1. So you're gonna enjoy it, Misty Mrs. Wayne. So looking forward to your feedback. This camera had full tilt, pan, zoom, night vision, remote control, audio and video. Wow. I think it's that time to do that. One stopped a fight by wearing a GoPro and yelled, "I'm going to make you famous." Wow, Bolo. That's interesting because there is probably this part, right, that is people are maybe unwilling to do some things because they know they would be recorded, and they probably also know the power of video if it gets before a police officer or district attorney or a judge. Maybe in some cases that's happening, because there is such a high value put on video evidence. So yeah, it's really good. Andrew uses a dash cam. So I need to do that. I just think it's got to become a non-negotiable. I got to figure out how to make it work though. I don't want to wire. Like I said, I don't want to have a lot of external stuff going on in the vehicle, but I just think it's time. I think it's time to do that. Too many crazy things can happen. And if you have us or me versus you, and you also have dash cam video, that's big. So this is Uke. I'm way out of the loop here. I've had the video running the whole time, but it was on the phone with a cousin for a few hours. Look at Uke. So our good friend Uke. Wow. It's Uke. So we did have the legal man on. We had Lee on tonight. So really like the first 70 minutes of the show, Lee was on. Then he had another commitment that he needed to get to. So that's the first 70 minutes of the show. Then we did some kind of unpacking of that. So Monday night is we have Lisa Lenny on the show, and she's a return guest. Lisa Lenny's she's an attorney in the Houston area. She's going to be talking, and a lot of fun, Lisa. She's going to be talking about the law of necessity, right? What if you have to trespass in order to save somebody from quicksand, right? And then also the Good Samaritan law. Like, what does it mean? How do you apply it? How do you say I was acting under the Good Samaritan law, right? So those are two things we're going to get into Monday night with Lisa Lenny. And then the 21st, we have Mike Dahl, head of Wisconsin Esports, and just in general, a really big name, big contributor to the esports in the United States. So we're going to have Mike on the show. But yeah, so Monday, Lisa's going to come on. And I think tonight was a great show. I learned a lot. I'm going to have the blog post out tomorrow. I'll also link out to the site that he said to learn about the jury, the power of juries. You'll see that there's a theme in a lot of work that he does, saying juries are kind of your last best hope for justice. So yeah, very cool. So let's see. This is Bacon. I drive almost every night for work. Have almost 7 years. Never had a dash cam. Probably should. Only accident I've had on shift was I was parked in a Jeep, ripped my bumper and headlight off. Yeah. So I think, so from what I've been gathering is the benefit of the dash cam is, and as Legalman said, if you immediately are able to show that to the police officer, they can look at it and say, yep, this is pretty irrefutable. And you can get things decided at that level without even having to go up to the next level of court and whatever. And I think for your insurance agency, if something happens and whoever your insurance provider is. But yeah, I've never had one, and I've been thinking more and more I should have had one. Like the accident I was involved in back in 2019 in January on the interstate that I was kind of in the middle of. Had I had a webcam or a dash cam, I should say, that would have been extremely valuable because everything unfolded in front of me and then other people described it also. And, but had I been able to say, here it is, here's what happened, here's the red car, here's what the red car did. I think it's a self-defense thing. And, I just, and juries, judges, police officers, they want that and they make decisions on that, boom, on the spot. So if you can have video, like, go for it. That's why we all have on our phones, like, people YouTube things and, get it out there if something big is happening, some confrontation or whatever. So, and it seems like the courts go for that and the judges and the police. So I know school administrators go for it. They're not trying to say, is this false or is this true? I mean, if there's two competing arguments, somebody has a video taken from a camera 50 feet away, that's going to tip the scale. So, all right. Well, guys, an appreciation going out tonight to Mike McClune and to Coop for super chats. Thank you guys very much. Thank you everybody for being here. And for making the Legal Man feel welcome. Thanks for supporting this channel. We have 1,155 subscribers. That's awesome. This is show 193. Show 194 will be Monday night. We're getting up to 200 shows. We'll have that probably before the end of the year. So that's really cool. And with the show being monetized now, there's ad revenue coming in. Not that this show is ever going to probably, it was be a standalone big YouTube thing, but it is, I think one of the biggest impacts of that is it shows when we bring guests onto the show, like tonight, that, yeah, this is a show that's been around. It's been supported by people. It's been supported by Jim, Mike, Uke, Bolo, Misty, Mrs. Wayne, Ron Wayne, that it has people that support the channel. And then when someone commits their time and wants to participate in the show, that they're not kind of speaking into a void, right? Of, oh, the show will get 10 views and whatever. So, ring cameras as evidence. I think that is an interesting thing. And that could be kind of like that could be a follow-up on, I can see a couple questions there. One is like, so the police ask me, do you want to participate where your ring camera can be accessed by the police at any time? Like, is this kind of mosaic? And then we'll let people know about that. And we think it'll deter crime. So like I pick up my phone and I call my lawyer and say, hey, like off the cuff, this seems like a good idea, but at the same time, I'm not sure, right? What should I be thinking about here? So look at Bolo, he's thinking Bacon. I want to thank Bacon Maldito. So yeah, Bacon helped bring a lot of people to this channel, to my channel. So thank you, Bacon. I appreciate that. I know that you've done that. So thank you. I was kind of against backup cameras to my last girlfriend. She had a Honda Fit travel time and a backup camera, super tight. Yeah. We have, our new SUV is, it has 360 degree cameras. And I'll tell you, man, that thing is amazing. And my daughter, who's 16, so that's the vehicle she got her driver's license on. That's the one she drives. And, you come up to a curb, like, exactly where you are with a curb, coming in out of a garage and stuff like that. The 360 degree cameras. There's cameras under the mirrors, camera in the front, camera in the back. It's amazing. And I have a rear view camera in my car, but I have a bigger LaCrosse, and it's kind of, it's not, I like it, but it's not the easiest in space to know where the vehicle is because it's very long. And even when I'm in and out of the garage. Like if I had a side camera, it would make it so much easier. Like I have to be very careful so I don't rip a mirror off because my garage isn't very wide. I mean, it would be the passenger mirror that I've got to be very careful as I'm getting in and out of the garage. And so yeah, the I wasn't, and it has a 13-inch screen on it too, so you get a big high def view of what's happening around you. I would have been a little skeptical about that, but then she uses it, and that's kind of the technology she's used to. And when we go on vacation, like it's a big thing. I've found as a big benefit for me is like we're trying to park somewhere, like I can get the vehicle exactly where it needs to be. So, Jim, literally a fender bender because of Michigan's no-fault insurance laws passed in the 70s. I was 5 years old. Oh no, man. Jim, same with no-fault divorce. It just makes money for lawyers and judges. Yeah, I heard Pop and Richard Coop talk about that. Coop in Canada, Pop in the US. So I had a few friends that went through that, and then they had to take all these courses too, like how to parent as a divorced parent and and all these things. I'm like, holy smokes, man. Jim, everything about MGTOW has told me, has checked out when I look it up. So, yeah. So I think Terrence Pop his body of content is really informing on that. If you kind of go into where he talks about his experience in his divorce and custody and stuff like that. It's weird how much disconnect there is between generations when it comes to driving. When I learned in the 90s, there was no such thing as backup cameras. Kids today will never learn how to. Yeah, I learned in the 80s, man. No backup cameras. And now they're talking about approving vehicles without side mirrors, right? Without a rear view mirror, because it would just be projected onto the side and some other stuff. And, but I will say though, I'm very glad I have a backup camera. And the first one I got was just a tiny little thing that came up on the mirror on my Chevy Equinox in 2010. And I thought that was awesome. And it had a little radar thing, beep, beep, beeping back to you. But, now the new vehicle, the SUV, has just this massive amount. As long as it works, like it's pretty amazing. So, yeah, parallel park the way their parents can. Yeah, now you press a button, boom, goes in parallel parks. But they have Tesla Auto Drive to park for them. Yeah, it's kind of going that way, right? I mean, it's kind of going that way for the generations forward. Like they're going to have all this technology, or they get trained on it in the vehicles they have driver's ed. I paid $99.99 cash for driver's training, passed in a slushy snowstorm. Yeah, I also got my license during a snowstorm. So, oh man, yeah. I mean, some of these things will just be different. I mean, how long will we have? It was 80. It was 86 for me. How long before we have, self-driving cars are just kind of the norm. So I don't know, but I also say like there's some, as long as it's not hacked and things like that, there's some definite efficiencies in that. It's more mobility for elderly people. So, but again, that's under a altruistic, view of the future, and not a compromised, hacked view of the future. So, yeah, in the DMV's car, not even the car I drove there. Wow, the DMV is like, here, take over this Chevy Camaro, which we got on a drug bust. And it's going to be the car we're going to take you out on. So I didn't know the DMV had ever did that. I suppose it makes sense though, because then they would know everything worked and met standards. Like, here, we'll take the driver's test in your car and the blinkers don't work. And other issues on it. So brakes are bad, but even if the sky is falling, whoop, geez, even if the sky is falling, not even the car I drove there. So, oh, sorry, even if the sky is falling, we have it good. Yeah. So, yeah, no, good. Camaros are lame. Chargers for the win. I'm with you, Yuke. I'm with you. So, Buick LaCrosses for the win. So, it is the vehicle of old people. Yeah, they stopped making the sedans. 2017, 2019, they don't make any sedans anymore, Buick. But it's a big car. So, it's comfortable, but it's too big. It is just, it's this stretch is really, for my garage and stuff, but I mean, I have 30,000 miles. I bought it new, so I'm not going to do anything with it, but it just is way too big. Ooh, old Tornado, Black Mamba edition. Yeah. Pintos. We had a Pinto when I was growing up. Green Pinto. So, yeah. Wow. I remember that thing. So I can't do it here, which kind of sucks. I wish I could do that. I want to be able to do a poll, and let me just see if I'm missing out here something. Can I do a poll in StreamYard? You can create quizzes allowing your viewers. You can use Kahoot in StreamYard. What? Let's see. All you need is to open the browser-based app. What the hell's going on here? This should just be built in. Oh, Christ, you got to set up a Kahoot account. I don't want to deal with any of that. Seems like this should be built in to StreamYard. So, yeah, I'm not in. Not happening, Jack. So that kind of sucks. But I don't know, man. My one friend was a Camaro girl for years. They started to suck around 16. Then she started driving Chargers. I've gotten to drive her souped up buggy, and it's tight. My friends had a Tornado. Those are front-wheel drive. So I've driven in heavy rain and heavy snow, solid piece of machinery. Yeah, I have low-profile tires on my LaCrosse. They came that way. And even though I put on higher traction tires, the vehicle is really bad in winter. So I rarely drive if it's snowing or anything like that. It's always the SUV in winter. Throw it on all-wheel drive, and it does a great job. So, but mine is just bad. Is that a Buick, Doc? I have two Buicks. Yep, the SUV is a Buick, and my Buick LaCrosse. So the other one we've had almost a year. We ordered it, and it was delivered last December, which is really a good thing because now it's hard to get them you can't order. You have to do the packages. They don't let you deviate from those. So, we have the heated seats and the heated steering wheel and all that stuff on the one. And my car is really basic, but so that's really cool because the new ones, they don't have the chips, so they just get them and they're like, here's a discount. And then if we get the chips in, do you have snow tires? I do not. I don't switch out tires in winter because I just don't do a lot of winter driving. But I did go to, I don't know what I put on, a Michelin which had a better winter rating. And so basically like a 50,000 mile tire, which a compound that will stay flexible and have more grit in it at lower temperatures. Because what happens on an all season radial, right? If you just buy it off the lot, as a new car, those are fine until you get to like under 32 degrees freezing, right? Because then those tires get really hard and you don't have the traction, they get very slippery. So it did improve, like when I have the tires on, because I paid a lot. I probably paid $250 for each tire. But the fact, because it's still low profile, there's only so much you can kind of do unless I were to change out the rims and shit. I'm not going to get into all of that. And like I said, we've got if we ever have to go anywhere, I mean, to be honest, Bolo, outside of teaching, and I'm done teaching in person till next year, I don't have to drive that vehicle a lot. And then, so if we have to go anywhere, right, we're taking the SUV, which is all-wheel drive. And I've got a just better setup on that for any type of winter driving. So that was really the goal, was to have this vehicle if we got to go somewhere and we know it's going to be snowy or it's been whatever. Because all-wheel drive will help you out in snow, kind of an ice. It doesn't help you out with braking at all. But it definitely does help you out, certainly in snow and to some extent with ice. But the new vehicles with the ABS and, well, I mean, vehicles of ABS, but the traction control and all of that just makes a big difference. But I'm a huge fan of all-wheel drive in Wisconsin for, like 4 months of the year. It's the default, or just, I'll tell my wife and daughter, like, put it in all-wheel drive. It's winter. So even though if everything's cleared off, I don't care if we only get 20 miles a gallon. I don't care, just keep it in all-wheel drive. So for winter. Oh, Buick Grand National. Those are beautiful, man. Buick Sentras are nice too. You bet. Absolutely. Ron Wayne. For an inexperienced driver on such a machine, such as the lottery winner of almost $1 billion, imagine that. I think I'd be a good lottery winner, because as long as people didn't find out, like you'd have to really go extensive to protect your identity or whatever he did on that. I don't know. But like I think I'd be a really good lottery winner, because I would do things bang off the bat. I would donate a new fire truck to where I live and then to my hometown. I'd donate to the Humane Society in my area here. I'd donate a pool to the community because their pool is old and outdated that's here. And then I would, do a ton of traveling, and I just would be like a good person to have win a lottery. Like I wouldn't be doing all this crazy stuff, and I would bring I think I could facilitate it to bring a lot of good to people. If that makes any sense. I really think I would. I'm pretty sure like that would actually happen. But I didn't even buy lottery tickets, so there's really not a question. I've known though 2 people who've won the lottery, which is strange. So the one when we were growing up north, the people next to us won the lottery, and then a person like, I don't know, 10 years ago when I was working, it won the lottery. So it was kind of, I don't know, I guess what are the odds, 2 people who won the mega bucks or whatever, but one handled it really well and one handled it really poorly. So I knew a lottery winner kid in the 80s, drove 155 over 25 years. Oh my God. Wow. Look at that. Was going to say 50K is fairly low on miles, but yeah, if you're running winter tires, that makes sense. Yeah. I've grown up in Wisconsin. I've never run winter tires. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, so when you grow up in this stuff, you just kind of get used to it. And that was all rear wheel drive vehicles. And, there's it's hard to describe, right? But you acclimate to it. You just understand how to drive in those situations for the most part. Things can happen too, but where the vehicle slides and whatever, you just understand that. met a 2-time lottery winner when staffing a convenience store. It's never enough. He was buying more lottery. Really? See, to me, like, I don't get that. You know, that's a really weird addiction, right? You know, the first people I knew who won the lottery, and I was younger then, like when I was older and I knew people who won the lottery, they were really, hyper responsible with their lottery winnings. And, but the first people just they threw a ton of money into the stock market because they wanted to take their millions and make it into hundreds of millions. And they end up losing everything. They actually lost a place that they had up north. They had to sell that. But I was kind of like, dude, if you win, you've won. You don't have to keep parlaying into more and more and more. I mean, I always run the numbers like on like a retirement account, so let's say you have like $1 million and you are going to retire at age 60. I can actually bring this up. Let's do this. I'll put a screen. So, all right. So let's say that you had $1 million. Well, right. So you win $1 million, whatever. You have $1 million and you are after taxes, right? So it would be a pretty poor lottery if you have $1 million, right? And you want 50 years worth of like annuities. So every year you get a payout. Now, granted, like by year 50, inflation stuff significantly changes things versus the first year. Relatively speaking, though, right? Because think about now a flat screen TV. I was at Walmart today, a Philips big screen TV, like a 56-inch Philips, a good brand, under $300. That thing would have been $3,000 10 years ago, right? So there are certain things that get expensive and other things that kind of don't, get expensive. It's kind of an inverse. But so let's say you had $1 million and you had 50 years, you're going to withdraw, let's say $3,000 a month. So $36,000 a year, $3,000 a month. What would that get you? Okay. So you could live and say you had 2.5% interest you're getting on your money, which could be a T-bill or certificate deposit, something like that. You could live 47 years by drawing out $36,000 a year off of that, $3,000 a month. And so say in addition, you're still doing something or you get Social Security or whatever, but this, to me, this would be a pretty big thing. Like if you knew for 47 years, right, that you'd have $3,000 a month coming to you, that'd be life-changing, right, in what you would do. So yeah, if you bump this up to like 275, what would that be? What would that add? Oh God, that gets you out to 50 years. And that's, right now, like rates are 3.75 for like a year. So $3,000 a month. So I'd be really happy with that. I wouldn't be sad at all. These formulas. People don't look at stuff this way though. I remember talking with a financial advisor once, and he's like, "Oh, you got to have like all this money in retirement, and so you got to take this additional risk." And I was like, "I don't know, man, because like if I have a certain amount that I can take a lower rate on a return, let's say treasury notes or something like that, and I know it's not $1 million, but let's say I can get to a certain amount, and I know I can kind of amortize that over years as a pseudo annuity or quasi annuity, but I have control over all of it, right? So I'm good with that. Like 50 years from now, I'd be 111 years old, which means I'm not going to be around. So like this probably isn't going to even happen. Like there'd be money left over that my kids would inherit it or whatever. But these aren't authentic numbers. I just put these in here, right? But people don't, they always make you think you got to have more. Oh, you got to have like $3 million to retire, $5 million to retire. Really? I mean, I don't think that's, so I always have you chasing the dragon. And I think it's really bad for people to be sold that mentality. And I remember too, like one financial advisor, I talked to him and I said, dude, like, right. I know what you're saying, but no. So I'm not subscribing to that. When I started smoking cigarettes, they're $2 back. When I started driving, gas was maybe $1 to $1.50. Yeah. I remember gas being 77 cents when I was in high school. I remember that because I have a picture of my Plymouth Duster outside of the Cenex gas station, and the gas was 77 cents a gallon. So a lot of people don't remember this. I should have taken more pictures. I didn't put it in the book either, but gas was under $1 in early April of 2020, where I live, when everything was locked down and stuff was closed. Gas was like 96 cents a gallon. It just plummeted. So people don't remember that, right? Less than 3 years ago, gas was under $1 for maybe a month. Crazy. We used to drive 100-ish miles to Jersey Shore just for the funsies. That's great. Yeah, a weekend trip could be 1,000 miles easy if you had 3 drivers. Man, that's awesome. It's good. Yeah, no, good times, enjoyed things. Like even today, putting out the Christmas decorations, I was like, oh God. But I did take the shortcut of taking the wire snips and cutting the stuff off of the deer and re-roping them. But I'm like, no. It's really weird though. Like it seems time has gone very fast, because 10 days ago we were taking down the Halloween stuff. It was 70 degrees, and then you're still kind of in that end of fall type thing. I had leaves I was taking care of, and now today all the Christmas stuff is out. All the leaves are done, and now the next week the 10 days will be 30s. That's it. So like you make this fast transition to winter. Unfortunately, we don't like usually a fast transition to summer, but I absolutely love April through September. That's my time to shine, especially in summer when I can put my chair out on the driveway. It doesn't get dark till 8:30, 8:45 at night, and it's 80 degrees out, and I'm just sitting there with the iced tea and just chilling, man. Oh God, I miss that. So, when I'm biking too, like there's times I'm biking and I think, and it's hot and I'm really having a good time. It's just me, but I'm just thinking, so it's maybe like July. I'll be like, 6 months from now, this will all be snow covered, right? This will all be snowy and icy and chilly and nothing green out here. And like when I'll really miss this. So I just want to savor this. I want to just soak this in, because I'll wake up some morning in early January and it'll be like minus 22 and a snowstorm. Well, probably don't get a snowstorm minus 22, but be windy, and I'm just going to be like, oh, this sucks. But I remember when I was out biking and just soaking up the sun and how great it felt. And so, yeah. So I love camping, says Yuke, F the haters. Good for you, buddy. Nice. Camping is my version of vacation, but acting like a homeless person, don't care. No, camping rocks. Yeah. Because the roads were less congested, you could easily get 80 to 100. Yes. Wow. Misty Mrs. Wyndham. Right. Oh, you absolutely love camping. Yeah. When my kids are younger, we used to camp outside the back of our house, right? So that was really easy to do because you put up a tent, and if you had to use the bathroom, you just came in through the porch door and into the house. But that was a big thing for them. So we camped when I was much younger, but I mean, when they were younger, we would camp and backyard camp. And then I would bring out a laptop, and I think one of the movies, Wreck-It Ralph, like we would play in the tent, and it was just cool. It's a lot of fun. I come from the gun tube community, so camping is like, let's light off fireworks. Yes. Military regulations, not kidding. Tent pegs must be bright color such as orange or white. Interesting. I have orange tent stakes that I use for putting my deer out. So I bought those at a outdoors place so I could find the damn things, because sometimes you couldn't find them otherwise. Yeah. So until not visible. Interesting. So you don't trip. Yeah. Well, actually, I never thought about that. I should have paid a little more attention, because I have my cable TV wires run through the backyard, and I know where I put my deer. It's pretty clear of that, but those run pretty close to the surface. So look at bacon. So it's Catch-22, just like the novel. So yeah, coolio. So all right, we'll tell you what, I'm going to call it a night. It was awesome to have the legal man on. Let me check and see if there's anything here that I need to attend to. I don't know where my phone is, by the way. So it's kind of weird. Thought it was down here charging. Apparently it's not. So, all right. Well, let me take us out here. So thank you for being here. Thanks for your support of the show. Monday night, Lisa Lenny will be on. So, all right, everybody. I'm going to take us out of here. So have a good night, and I will hopefully see you on Monday.
How were the beans and chili that you had for breakfast?
They were delicious. Thank you for asking. But now I am very gassy.
I'm sorry to hear that. Who let the frogs out? Phew, that stinks very bad. I have to open the window. Oh no. My cap flew off and it was sucked into the engine.
Holy smokes, the engine just cut out. We should use the Decide model to help us make the right decision.
Mayday. Mayday. I am declaring a beans and chili emergency. Please advise for landing.
Flight 019er, 2 miles northeast. Turn left at 90. Maintain 4,800 to establish an approach. Engine 5, dispatch. Pockets of fire all around.
As chaos erupts, torrents of conflicting yet urgent messages gush from media outlets. What is the magnitude of the incident, and what should people do to protect themselves? Dr. David P. Perodin teaches you how to prevent mental burnout by observing indicators and building a robust member check network. Reporter James David Dixon of the Detroit News proclaims, the velocity of information will empower its readers. Drawing on current events, history, interviews, and scholarship, the velocity of information is an education in the way people react and adapt to change in this fast-spinning world. Never has it been more important to sift facts and stories for truth and meaning. There are teachable moments on every page. Buy The Velocity of Information, Human Thinking During Chaotic Times. Available from your favorite bookstore or online retailer.
Describe the odor. Is it like when something electrical is burning? And so on. Ridiculous, right? We don't shift the investigation to the reporter. But that's covertly what the school district thought needed to happen to prevent their investigation scrambling principals from burning out. And as this paragraph smolders, it would be prudent to consider bringing students with disabilities from the sidelines of safety and center them to active roles of detecting and reporting threats. So we had a rather difficult meeting. Upon due diligence of examining the reporting system, I informed the district representative that I could not justify modifications to the existing model, as such changes would make the system less accessible to students. Well, that was a short chit-chat. The district folks believed, or hoped, that the threat input system could be modified and maintained with fidelity. I wasn't in alignment with that hypothesis, and so I was thanked and given notice that our partnership would be over at month's end. Business is business, but in school safety, it's never as simple as that.
Holy shit, a ghost.
Ooh.
Do you mind moving out of the way? You're blocking the TV.
Oh, shit. Sorry, man.
It's okay. Thank you.